Jesse, is this okay position for microphone?
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. Welcome to RCI TV on both Twitch and YouTube, and we're here for the brand new Pocket Money British GT Championship. Today marks round one of the championship, and we're coming to you live from the historic Oulton Park circuit, nestled in the picturesque Cheshire countryside. Oulton Park is renowned for its challenging layout, featuring a mix of fast straights, tight corners, and elevation changes that promise to test our drivers' skills to the limit. I'm John Dalton, your lead commentator for today's virtual racing action, with Callum Kerrigan alongside me, Jesse Lee bringing you all the pictures from behind the cameras, and of course not forgetting our live stewards. Welcome everyone.
Thank you, John, and welcome everyone to what is going to be an incredible mini British GT Championship. I, for one, am excited beyond belief for this championship. I think we've had 40 plus sign-ups for this on what I will say, and Jesse Lee on the broadcast will probably disagree with, that the UK make the greatest racetracks in the world, and for this calendar for me is the pinnacle of what I enjoy in sim racing and in motorsport. Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, it's a fantastic calendar, isn't it? You know, British circuits typically very old school in their nature, not a lot of runoff, lots of grass and gravel, bumps and divots everywhere, as we currently ride on board with one of the Ford Mustangs. I think it's possibly Ted Edwards, judging by the green mirrors, as he's already navigated through Old Hall Turn 1, down Denton's, through Cascades, and now begins through Island Bend towards Shell Oil's corner. The right-hander bank to keep the car very low, use the camber to kind of suck the car around to get a good run off down towards Britain's. Of course, turn 6 is the kink, 7, 8 and 9 becomes the chicane. Of course, be very careful on the curbs, quite easy to upset the car, and then we begin the climb over the brow of the hill down towards turn 10 and 11. Of course, Hislop's chicane again. Be careful on the entry curve, quite high, quite banked. This one's quite flat, and then you've got to really propel yourself out of Knickerbrook turn 12 to get yourselves a good run up the hill. Of course, over the top of Clay Hill through the fast bend, turn 14 of Water Tower, before standing hard on the brakes for turn 15 Druids. Double apex right-hander, touch the first apex, run wide, touch the second apex, keep it off the grass and curb on the outside again, over a slight crest, down the other side, all the way down to Lodge corner of turn 16. Got to get a good run off of here. Be very careful. Car very prone to oversteer as we go down and up Deer Leap turn 17 and across the line. Ted Edwards first to the line with a 1:33.415, immediately bested by Benjamin Heilman. Nicholas Keller's looking very competitive. Mike Redford in towards the top. Christopher Streppen towards the top already in the number 747 Heart of Racing. Aston Martin, a car wide in the background there. That's Redford, and Benjamin Heilman, RCI Esports, already towards the front of the grid with Andy Boardman also in tow. Callum, we're seeing some very fast laps already coming in from these guys. Track is optimum, 21 degrees in the air, 28 down on the track, so Pirellis at the moment should absolutely be loving life in this qualifying session.
Yeah, the fast laps are coming in and they're flowing. Just looking at that track, look how many people are on the circuit right now. Navigating a clean area to actually complete your lap is going to be such a challenge here. And as we well know with Oulton, any small mistake just leeches lap time off you, with all the bumps into braking zones, how you have to navigate the curbs. Any slight mistake could put you in a position for your following quali lap, which isn't going to be optimal. So for me personally, I think qualifying is absolutely vital here today, John.
Yeah, I've got it in my notes tonight. Qualifying standard 15-minute format, although track position, as you said, Callum, absolutely crucial in such a large and competitive field. Of course, securing a strong starting position can make all the difference in tonight's race. This will, of course, set both grids for both races tonight. 2 30-minute sprint races, as we see Ted Edwards there out of the last corner abandoning his lap. Benjamin Harmon towards the line. It's provisional pole with a 1:32.530. Christopher Streppen answers back with a 32.820, and Badowski still mixing at the top as well. But Andy Boardman in the Ford Mustang, does he improve? He does. It's a 32.5 just behind Benjamin Harmon. 10 minutes to go, just under, and it's already looking very competitive between all the big names that we recognize here on Mondays at RCI.
Yes, absolutely. And what a statement lap there by Benjamin Heilman, just pumping in. Second lap, already half a second clear of Verstappen. Verstappen comes in and takes 3/10 off his lap, and then Boardman right on the tail end. I mean, excited to see what comes around on the next lap coming around. But on your talk of how difficult it is to pass here, I was watching British touring cars over the weekend, and they were finding room, they were finding space, but it all comes again at that risk. It's such a thin track, such high risk, high reward. Do you make the dive and accidentally put both of you off the track and lose a few spaces from there, or do we go full risk on this one? What would your strategy be coming into this race, John?
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? It's a very complex track to understand. Oulton Park, it lends itself very well to the touring car kind of format, but GT cars slightly bigger, slightly less agile, a bit harder to get the nose pointed in or find that little bit of overlap. Of course, no real argy-bargy in ACC like you see in real life. It does lead itself to cars pinging off left, right and centre, so you've almost got to run in a bit of a train as Benjamin Harmon there improves on his pole lap with a 1:32.452. Badowski, the next car through, slight improvement with a 1:32.985 as well. I think Andy Boardman's just improved there in the Greased Weasel racing car, just in the background, a 1:32.652. Last time by it wasn't an improvement. I stand corrected there, but lots of cars coming back to the pit lanes, going to be splitting up their sessions into, of course, 2 7.5-minute qualifying sessions, essentially to try and get the best out of the Pirellis. But Oulton Park, back to your point, Callum, it is a bit of a train circuit. We see lots of, packs forming. Car makes a mistake, everybody behind gets the overrun, and they soon get swallowed up into the back of the train, and then racing commences that way. So being consistent and being kind of safe, but at the same time a little bit aggressive is normally a good strategy here, because like you say, it's super hard to try and find an overlap anywhere. And You've really got to lean on your opponent, try and force the error just by, putting them under pressure constantly. Of course, 30 minutes on the clock tonight. Drivers, I feel, Callum, are going to get slightly desperate when the clock starts running down, and we're going to see some big moves, some late lunges, and of course, lots of pack racing to come. Like you say, 49 cars on the sign-up list for this championship, 35 currently in the server, and it's going to provide for some excellent racing in about 10 minutes time when we get the green flag.
35 cars filling up one of the narrowest circuits we have on ACC. I mean, again, I can't help but chuckle every time I glance to that mini-map right now, the amount of cars that are on track. There were times I noticed people were going back into the pits ready to go for their sort of second run on qualify, but there's just no space for them to run out to. Like, where do you find the gaps now? You can see a couple going into the second chicane and out the end of Cascades, but that timing is just going to be so vital.
Yeah, you're really going to have to pick your moment to filter out into the traffic. Lots of blue dots on the map at the moment, which indicate cars that aren't on a valid lap, as you see over the top of the hill, of course, going into the Knickerbrook chicane. There's lots of cars there not on a valid lap, so they're all going to be working together, hopefully to get themselves some clear air for the last 6 minutes or so. Joshua Lation, there's slight improvement on his lap time, P15 in the grid at the moment. And Theobald Roskam, another driver we're quite familiar with here. Rebound Racing, of course, Joe Dorber, Carlos Calatayud, to name a few more on that team. He comes to the line, a little bit of help from the GTR ahead, up to P22 he goes with a 1:33.940, just outside your top 20, and a big wiggle there coming through the first corner. And this team here, RPMS Motorsport, plenty of these guys in the field tonight. We've got Matt Stevens, we've got Daniel Crimson in a GTR, we've got Yao Manzo in the Audi R8, Richard Phillips in a Lamborghini. So each one of them picking a different car for tonight's race. So some good diversity coming through from the RPMS camp as well.
And one thing I did notice about what you're saying there is a few GTRs in the field. I've seen a Bentley in the field. I've seen Lambos, Ferraris. This is a good mix of cars. I think we're in for a real treat here. Obviously, each car has different characteristics, how it comes off the corner, how it turns into the corner, mid-corner speed. So I think I think we all expect it to be a spicy one, but this is one I am eagerly anticipating.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a good mix of manufacturers, like you mentioned there, Callum. Of course, looking to the front of the grid, it's a McLaren on pole, followed by the BMW. Of course, Andy Boardman in the Ford, Badowski in a Lamborghini. This man here, Christopher Streppen in the Aston Martin, Carlos Calatayud in a Ferrari, Matt Stevens in a Mercedes, and then we see the first repeat manufacturer, that being Ted Edwards, of course, in a Ford. The Nissan jumps inside the top 10 with, of course, the Audi just behind it as well. So even in the top 10, it's a superb mix of cars, let alone when you spread that across 35 cars up and down the grid. Nicolas Galois here in the number 73 coming through the Shell Oils corner. Currently down in P31. He's going to be seeking an improvement there as an Aston Martin runs a little bit wide out of the corner. Very easy to do at the Shell Oils corner. Jump the throttle a little bit too early and the car kind of skates its way up the banking, and once you hit the grass, it just kind of takes you completely off into the yonder. So very good heads-up driving there from the Aston Martin to stay out of the way. Just ahead, I think that's Benjamin Heilman and Marco Badowski, almost duking it out in qualifying. Just under 4 minutes to go at the moment. Both of those guys seeking an improvement. And the gaps, Callum, I just want to look down the list on the left-hand side. Of course, we can't really see the top guys, but P1 to P17 separated by just over a second. I mean, even Les Stevenson, Jake Howling, of course, still within just about a second. So we've got nearly the top 20 separated by just over a second. And a small mistake here at Oulton Park is definitely going to cost you more than a second. So it's going to be super competitive when we get the green flag going soon.
Wow, top 17 or top 19 roughly within 1 second of each other. That's just how tight this field is. And all that could be is, your tyre runs over the curb just slightly incorrect. I'm thinking about the first chicane here and how important that exit is, especially in the race. If you get that exit slightly wrong, the car behind you is going to be side by side, and before you know it, you're battling going into the second chicane. Then you're compromised for Knickerbrook, probably getting another car beside you at Druids. Qualifying's everything, but consistency here is going to be absolutely key for the race winner today.
yeah, consistency is going to be that thing on people's lips today. Les Stevenson for Roca Poca Racing coming across the line. That's a good improvement up into P15. Now Manzo just behind in the Audi. Still no improvement for him. Just resides behind his teammate, of course, Daniel Crimson in P9. Andy Boardman, meanwhile, looks like an improvement last time. It was a 133.462. Oh, no, sorry, that wasn't an improvement, was it? That was a second slower. Andy Boardman, though, certainly seeking improvement. He's got a very small margin to make up to put that Ford on pole. And we know how good Andy Boardman can be in the race. Quite an aggressive driver when he does put his hand to it, Callum. So, I mean, getting past the likes of Brewster and Heilmann, that could be very interesting indeed. Of course, the top two representing RCI esports in disciplines across the communities at hand. Of course, numerous endurance races behind themselves. So 30-minute sprint is going to be a little bit different to maybe what they're used to here tonight. But of course, the format is going to be certainly electrifying. Just under 2 minutes to go. Everybody setting themselves up for another lap. Callum, just look at the start-finish straight. Lots of blue dots coming across the line, all turning to grey. So everybody is really going to have one last stab at it. It's about Roskam comes through the last corner, seeking an improvement at the moment. The number 96, just behind Jake Howling in the sister Porsche, and a good improvement there from the Belgian driver up into P14. It's a 133.287, and he is really trying to hustle that 992 around Oulton Park today.
Yeah, absolutely. There's people up and down the field putting in the laps. So right now it's crunch time. If you invalidate, go slightly wide, that's it. Chance is over, and we've spoken about it a few times. Qualifying being absolutely key. I've got a few people in the pits already. Crimson's in the pits. Les Stevenson, Mike Redford, all calling their qualifying done. But I fear that may be the wrong call. They may be dropping a few places if anyone's going to be improving, and all of a sudden you're going to be even deeper into the mid-pack, even deeper into the zone, which could really compromise your race if we do have an incident into turns 1 or turn 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, the typical Oulton Park incident, should we say. Car runs wide in turn 1, spins out, spins back across the track, and then it becomes an accordion effect of everybody trying to avoid that one car. Hopefully nothing of that such here tonight. Of course, the live stewards will be casting their BDI down from the box next door to us, giving us a wave through the glass. Good luck to you guys, because I'm sure you will need it when everybody starts getting elbows out. We tend to have two formats here, don't we, at RCI, of course, with the sprint races. We have a calm race and a hectic race, as we've proved on Wednesdays. And Andy Boardman goes to the pole with a 132.352 as the clock hits 0. He will take no further part and keep his fingers and toes crossed that is going to be enough to fend off Heilmann, Brewster and Badowski. Verstappen, of course, in the pits. Kalata Yud will join him as well. Matt Stevens, Ted Edwards crosses the line with no improvement on his place. Martin Ulrich, Daniel Crimson, to name a few, still in the pits as well. So cars still circulating around. Like I say, Callum, people scratching for this last-ditch effort, and a big moment there from Richard Phillips as he comes out the last corner down Deer Leap. I think he knows that lap is ruined. He slowed up before the line there, no further improvement. Grim Lilith, fastest hands in the West, comes across the line, no improvement for them. They will remain P24 in the Kaiju Racing powered by DR 2.0, and that's something we're going to touch on in a little bit. Race replay coming here. This is Les Stevenson coming down Cascades, fully sideways, and Kevin Boss gives him a kiss for good luck there, and that's two cars out of the qualifying in the late stages, and exactly what could happen in the race. Tom Shipston, of course, RPMS Sim Sport, he seeks an improvement, and up into P10 he goes, pushing down Crimson and Manzo, of course, another two RPMS cars in the camp there. And I think that was the last car to come across the line. Of course, number 11 circulating around, although not on a valid lap. So, of course, that will take no further part. So qualifying fully wrapped up at this stage. Andy Boardman secures the pole position, but only just from Benjamin Heilmann. Of course, Philip Brewster in P3. Badowski alongside him on row 2. Christoph Verstappen and Carlos Calatayud on the next row. Matt Stevens and Ted Edwards. We got Martin Ulrich and Tom Shipston rounding out the top 10. Of course, Daniel Crimson, Yao Manzo, Teixeira, Phillips, Roskamp, Redford, Stevenson, Joshua Lation. I've seen a fan in the Twitch chat for him, and of course, welcome in to everybody at home watching along. We promise you this is going to be a very exciting first round of the championship. We then got Nicholas Keller and Dow. Of course, we've got a brick of Ferraris in the kind of mid-pack there. Howling, followed by Packer, Boss Lilith, Van Kampen, Connor Matheson. That's a name I remember very well indeed. Myself and Connor have been speaking in the past few days, roped him into signing up very late to this championship, so great to see him back on the grid after his hiatus. Richard Withall, of course, Turner, Foster, Jurazek, Galois, Daniels, Fukusho, Montero, and Harby round out 35 cars on tonight's grid. And it's going to be an absolute stonker of a race. I mean, 49 drivers in the championship, 35 join us here tonight. And of course, we're in for a treat with 2 intense 30-minute sprint races lined up, where drivers, of course, will push their GT cars to the absolute edge, battling not only for race wins overall, but of course, crucial early championship points, with the field filled with a top-tier talent and evenly matched machinery. Was certainly set for some incredibly close and competitive racing. Of course, no mandatory pit stop tonight. However, this will change during the season, so drivers will certainly need to be on their toes to adhere to the criteria, of course, set out by our very own event admin, Tim Ireland. And that's something drivers should be doing, isn't it, Callum? You know, studying the calendar, working out what they're going to do and kind of where, almost in hindsight, without knowing truly what is going to happen during the race. Of course, a multitude of pit stops should keep strategy very interesting across the season, as of course we bring you a multitude of rounds for this championship actually on Mondays. It's a whopping 7 rounds, including a whistle stop tour to the Nordschleife, which is going to be my favorite round on the calendar. I think that's round 4.
Yeah, the calendar is looking phenomenal. Like I spoke earlier, the United Kingdom really do make the greatest racetracks. There's absolutely no bias in me saying that, I do promise. Um, but what I love about this championship is the mix of rounds. We've got 2 30-minute races today, which, you know, everyone's going to be hungry, thirsting for those points. So everyone may be a touch more aggressive, or as you said, maybe a touch more conservative, because they want to save up those points for later on in the season, where, you know, they feel like their car may perform or a track that better suits them. I know for me personally, I come to Oulton Park and I want to cry my eyes out. I save myself for the rounds like Brands Hatch or Donington Park. God, sorry, I got emotional there because of my feelings about Donington Park. This is going to be an incredible season all the way throughout. And just to call out pretty early here, we're not going to Spa, we're going to the Nordschleife.
Yeah, of course, the standard kind of whistle stop tour in the real life British GT series, of course, is a stop to the Spa Speed Week, which of course has happened just last weekend. To any eagle-eyed viewers at home, of course, head on over to the GT World channel to catch the action from that. It was a fairly exciting race on that one, to be fair. But of course, round 1 tonight at Oulton Park. Round 2, we find ourselves at Silverstone. Of course, these races are every Monday, every week. So we're going to be a regular fixture, hopefully on RCI TV for the next 7 Mondays. So nearly 2 months worth of racing on a Monday night. Round 3, we head to Donington Park. Round 4, we head to the Nordschleife, of course, the full N24 layout. Round 5, we find ourselves back in Blighty for Snetterton. Donington Park, like you say, Callum, a circuit that I enjoyed quite a lot, although my last race there didn't quite go to plan, but we won't dwell on that at the moment.
I remember it well, John. I remember it well. I remember it from the Steward's box.
It was very wet. It was very wet, to say the least. Round 7, of course, the finale, we find ourselves at Brands Hatch. So that'll be, again, a very competitive field. If we have the sheer numbers that we have had tonight, of course, like you say, Callum, Oulton Park, very compact circuit. Of course, Silverstone will allow the drivers to spread their wings slightly, of course. Lots more track space, lots more runoff area, a little bit of extra curbing here and there, so that should be nice for the drivers. Of course, Donington Park, the first of the double headers, should we say, on that one, where we revisit Donington later on in the season. Again, old school circuit, not a lot of runoff, not a lot of extra curb, quite narrow in some aspects, so that's going to be an interesting one. The Nürburgring Nordschleife, one of the narrowest tracks probably on the calendar. Of course, when we head out onto the Hats and back, that's going to get very narrow, very congested. You're going to have lots of drivers forming trains and hopefully working together as they come, of course, down the Dottinger Höhe. Lots of slipstream battles into Tiergarten to be had there. Snetterton, again, back to the narrow circuits. No extra runoff, lots of curb, lots of grass, lots of gravel to catch them out. And, of course, Donington Park, the same aspect. And then Brands Hatch, literally very narrow again. So it's going to be very, very tricky for a lot of these drivers, I think, to find track space. We're going to see a lot of desperate moves, but hopefully a lot of clean moves at the same time, where drivers, of course, try and work together to negate any time loss across the race. Of course, we're starting off with the sprint race tonight. Next week, we find ourselves with an hour 30. An hour 30 at Donington. We've got an hour at the Nordschleife, 2 minutes rear their heads again for Snetterton, an hour for Donington round 6, and then another hour for Brands Hatch. So a couple of sprint races thrown in the mix, one slightly longer race. Again, that's going to really kind of, spice things up a bit as we enforce mandatory pit stop rules across the way as well. So drivers are really going to have to be on their toes with this calendar to form a championship, should we say, because get caught out by these pit stop rules and you could find yourself losing crucial points quite early on when we start changing up the rule set.
Yeah, losing points, especially on tracks where passing may not be as easy as it would be at maybe the likes of a Silverstone or something along those lines. Just calling out, we've got the 2:30 minutes. We've got, people heated, ready to go for the championship. I just want to get a quick early shout out here to the stewards and the work they're going to be doing for the entirety of this season. They've got 35 cars today, a potential of up to 49 in one race to steward, and sort out what's going on in each way. So I've been in that steward's box many a times. I know how difficult and backed up it can be. So just an early thank you from the comms team. I'm sure everyone listening on Twitch and YouTube today. A massive thank you to the race stewards.
Yeah, of course, a big thank you to the stewards, and of course, a big thank you to everyone at home bearing with us during this interlude. We are just restarting the server. There's been a slight error with, of course, the pit stop rules. Of course, 30-minute pit stop, 30-minute race tonight. No pit stop needed. Somehow there's been a mandatory pit stop snuck into the server rule set. So we're just pulling the servers down, getting everybody back in to form the grid once again, of course, before we get underway tonight. So we thank you very much if you've dropped in, or if you're watching back on YouTube and Twitch, as a lot of the drivers do. A big hello to you guys for watching in, and the best of luck in hindsight to what is going to happen. Of course, Jesse Lee making us aware 2 minutes to grid, so we shouldn't be too long now with a formation lap before the green flag on that one. And just a big thank you, of course, to anyone that has subscribed along the way. Of course, we did net 4,500 subscribers on YouTube just this year. So it's a big feat for us here at RCI, of course, where we've come from in the past. It's been a long journey, and it's going to be even longer as we, of course, propel ourselves towards the future. You may have realized the Rally Championships have been a little bit thin on the ground, should we say, since EAWRC came out. Of course, we formed a club, we got things underway, we started building excitement and hype in the community, but then, of course, we did start slacking ever so slightly. So we had an announcement just last week from Phil Roberts, of course, who hosts the rally, should we say, on RCI, and we're making a switch from EAWRC, of course, back to Dirt Rally 2.0. So it does seem like a bit of a backwards move, but there is logic to it, should we say, on this one. Of course, the club community aspect of Dirt Rally 2.0 is a lot more kind of filled out. It's a lot more developed, of course, under the Codemasters banner versus, of course, the EA Games banner that we have now. Of course, apparently Dirt Rally 2 may, this is a big may, I say now, but it may have an opportunity to potentially broadcast things, which could bring Rally to RCI TV, which of course is going to be even bigger and better. It's not only going to be ACC content and slight iRacing content, it's also going to be Rally. So if you want to watch people stuff rally cars into trees, you may be able to do that here on RCI TV very soon. We do have a test event up in the club. It's beginning on Sunday, the 30th of June. We're heading to Scotland with 2000s WRC cars, which of course should give people a chance to install the game. Of course, the 30th is this Sunday coming, so you've got all week to do that. And the Steam sale, heads up, if you don't own Dirt Rally 2.0 just yet, the Steam sale is starting on Thursday, and typically, Phil has speculated, the complete edition usually goes about 80% off during this time. So if you don't own it, this week could be a good time to pick that up and, of course, jump into some EAWRC action. Of course, head on over to the Discord, select the relevant roles, and you should see the Rally channel in there as well. And, of course, a big announcement this week from Ryan Gill himself, of course, appearing back from behind the scenes. Some of you may have noticed the Motorsports UK esports becoming a part of RCI. We're now officially a recommended community by Motorsport UK esports. So if you're not familiar with them, there is a few links in the announcements channel within the Discord, but they're basically a governing body for four-wheel motorsports in the UK, representing competitors, volunteers, clubs and fans, and their role is to basically help elevate a level of sim racing esports by providing kind of support and guidance to communities and event hosts across the UK. And of course, you can become a paid member of their organization, which would of course net you some amazing benefits from deals and offers. And they have recently today announced that they are hosting the qualifying, I guess, for the UK esports leg of the 2024 FIA Motorsports Games. That's of course happening in Valencia later on in the year. That's in October. So if you are a UK member of the RCI community and you've got a little bit of pace behind you, why not head on over to their website and get registered for the esports Motorsport UK Games. Of course, you can net yourselves a trip to Valencia if you're fast enough, from what I'm reading. You do have to be a paid member though. If you do make it to the final 15, there's going to be an assessment day at Williams F1. Again, that's going to be pretty cool in its own right. And of course, drivers are expected to cover their own costs to attend the assessment day. However, of course, if you do become top dog, should we say, top qualifier of all of the season, you could find yourselves heading over to Valencia, of course, for the FIA Motorsports Games, which was held in Paul Ricard. Of course, the first few times we saw that featured many different disciplines of motorsport and even featuring a big section of esports. So again, that is pretty cool in its own right. Callum, cars are beginning to grid up at the moment. Of course, we're just waiting for the countdown, some 2 minutes or so on the clock. Of course, Andy Boardman at the front in the Mustang. We've then got Benjamin Harman just behind in the McLaren, Philip Bregster in the BMW M4, and Badowski in the Lamborghini. So we've got four different types of power plant coming off the start line. It's going to be a frantic run down to turn one. And if you get a bit of a bad start here, you're going to get swallowed up by the charging train of some 30 plus cars behind you.
Yeah, with that turn one closing sort of on the apex going into Old Hall Corner, it's going to be quite a frantic start. And those people at the back, how early are they going to need to brake in order to get safe through that T1? One thing I did just want to call out, John, is I've seen a little rumour in the YouTube chat here. Apparently you're going to be sending it in the rallying this season. Is that correct?
I mean, if anybody's ever tuned into my my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Oreo with like an SH at the end of it.
Good plug.
It's hectic. Like, I have had some very scary moments, but also some very cool moments where it's kind of played in my favour. So yeah, what else are you going to do on a rally stage, Callum? You have to send it all the way through the stage, otherwise somebody else behind you will send it slightly more and beat your time. And of course, you don't want to be at the back of the grid when you're rallying, because it's very hard to make up time. However, don't send it too much, because you will find yourselves in a tree.
Well, I do think I'll be on the latter of that, and definitely a bit of a tree hugger if I ever got Dirt Rally. But you say it's on sale on Steam. I could be tempted to give it a go, though I'm not sure if my skill set of actually, now I think about it, crashing regularly during a race could actually meet my skill set on a Dirt Rally. I think while we're here, if we could politely ask the broadcast team to show these liveries that we've got supporting our Dirt Rally season. I think Grim Lilith and Aaron Jackson have some rally-inspired liveries that we may spot at some point during the race. If we see them, I'll point them out. But there are some nice liveries across the grid. Just looking at them here now, I know we're on board with Les Stevenson. I will always be slightly biased to that, but yeah.
Big Les Stevenson fan, as always. A great guy.
Just like the livery, because I made it, really.
Just don't ask him where his cool bag's gone, and all will be okay, I think, on that one. Grim Lilith on your screen at the moment, of course, the Kaiju Racing powered by DR 2.0, of course, Dirt Rally 2.0 on that one. And the version of the game you do want to pick up is, of course, the Game of the Year edition. Currently $34.99 on Steam. Of course, Steam sale begins Thursday, so bide your time is all I'm saying, and you should be able to pick up a little bit of a bargain there. Of course, cars now begin their formation lap, where of course they will be building crucial temperature into the tyres, and alongside that of course comes pressures. And we've already had Mike Redford in the chat noting an early puncture in the qualifying, or early pressure loss, not a puncture, but pressure loss in the tyre. Of course, Mike Redford, a bit of a regular here at RCI, normally listens to the broadcast while he's driving as well, which must be very trippy, especially when we get on board with people and there's two sets of engine sounds. It really must throw people off, but certainly so. Mike Redford there in the number 95. In the mid-pack, of course, as you said, Callum, it's going to be the point of where do you brake for turn one. You're going to have to really be kind of alert to the people ahead of you, what they're doing, and of course any early mistakes. Of course, a lot of drivers here not having, you know, spotters alongside them like they're maybe used to in endurance racing. Of course, multiple teams run 2 or 3 people in Discord calls at once. One typically does the spotting, the other typically does the strategy. So again, they're going to have to read what is going on out the windscreen rather than listen to it in their ears. We've got a pit lane starter this time. Daniel Montero, the Ocean Midnight Tune number 50 GTR. Not sure if he's just forgotten to click start or has elected, maybe voluntarily, to take a pit lane start, knowing the chaos that might ensue, of course, at the turn one as we get down towards it. Of course, the front of the grid just coming through Knickerbrook, and just look at the snake of cars coming over the hilltop. They're not even into the chicane. We're under, you know, turn 14 at this point, and the field is still snaking out of turn 12 behind. We're going to start going 2 by 2 very shortly as we begin the run, of course, to Druids of turn 15. Benjamin Harman just behind Andy Boardman. Those two have come to blows in the past, I'm sure of it, here on RCI. Of course, Philip Bregster going to be acting almost like a rear gunner maybe for Benjamin Harman. Of course, different cars, but representing the same team, of course, the RCI Esports camp. We got Marco Badowski for Team Monkey Racing. Last Wednesday raced against him in a Ferrari. This time he's in a Lamborghini, so again a slightly different platform. Keep your eye on the Aston Martin, the blue one just behind Philip Bregster. Christoph Verstappen at the wheel. That's going to be a very fast car should Christoph find some space. And of course, Carlos Calatayud looking equally competitive in the Ferrari alongside. Down Deer Leap we come, turn 17. Andy Boardman will be on the left-hand side of your screen. Benjamin Heilman to the right as we wait for the green flag to go here at Oulton Park. And we are green. Let's go down to turn 1. Old Hall corner. Philip Bregster with a great start. Already jumping across Marco Badowski. Benjamin Heilman towards the outside. Runs a little bit wide. Bregster's on his inside. Hasn't got to worry too much. That looks like
there's
Nicholas
carnage in the back.
In the background. It is carnage indeed, Callum. We got cars off left, right and centre. Kevin Boss has managed to get through it. It is Nicholas Keller in the background that we see off to driver's left, almost at the tyre wall. So maybe getting a little bit of a helping hand into Old Hall corner. We're going to have to see if we can get a replay of that one. Of course, the GTR peels out of the pits relatively safely at the back of the train. Not lost all too much space. Ted Edwards tries the high side on Matt Stevens through Shell Oil's corner. No luck there. That's going to bring Martin Ulrich in the Aston Martin behind. And then we've got a snake of RPMS cars behind, haven't we? We've got 3 in a row. Grim Lilith sizing up Connor Matheson through the chicane. No move there. The Kaiju car pretty much stopping on the apex to avoid contact. That's going to bring the back end of the field into the picture. That's Martin Foster. Les Stevenson taking side by side with Richard Phillips. The tyre bail has already gone on lap 1. Les Stevenson prevails out of the Knickerbrook chicane. And I don't want to curse it too early, Callum, but judging by the amount of cars that we've got, that was a relatively clean start.
I'm genuinely quite surprised. A very clean start considering what we were expecting. Lovely move there by Verstappen into the final corner. Just calculated, slightly late dive, but clean as you like. And now he's chasing after the BMW of Bregster. But yeah, what a clean start we had there in action up and down the field. Every camera angle you saw too wide going into a corner. And I would like to just say for anyone watching on YouTube and Twitch, can we have an F in the chat for the tyre barrier? Gone lap 1.
Yeah, tyre barrier only surviving the first lap. I'm surprised nobody took it on the pace lap, but Benjamin Harmon looking super racy behind Andy Boardman through the first sector they go. Of course, the Mustang, relatively new to ACC. It's still a bit of an alien car to a lot of drivers, not fully understanding maybe what's going on here, but of course the Mustang should prevail in a 30-minute sprint race at least. Of course, we'll see how that evolves when we come to the slightly longer races. Of course, the hour-and-a-half events on the calendar. Mike Redford at the moment kind of seeing triple ahead as Yao Manzo runs wide, and that's the mistake we were talking about in qualifying. It only takes one slight mistake of running wide before you lose a position, and Mike Redford certainly seeing triple ahead there with Yao Manzo, Daniel Crimson just ahead, and Tom Shipston all in RPMS machinery. So he's got this haze of kind of aqua and grey cars just ahead of him out the windscreen, but already dispatching of Yao Manzo in the R8, and Mike Redford now gets a patch of clean air to try and hunt down Daniel Crimson in the next car along. Andy Boardman slightly stretching his legs though in the first couple of sectors, pulled out nearly half a second to Benjamin Harmon. Philip Bridgester just behind Harmon, probably working together with the McLaren. Christopher Streppen though, fastest lap of the race so far, across the line half a second to the good. Meanwhile, Grim Lilith and Stan Van Kampen, I think, Stephen Van Kampen even, having a little bit of a fight through Deer Leap. The Mustang legs, the V8 certainly firing on all cylinders, pulling Van Kampen out of the corner much quicker than the V10, but the handling of the Audi up the inside. Grim Lilith goes into Denton's, down to Cascades, and the move is signed, sealed, and delivered. The Mustang having no answer for the Audi R8 there.
God, all this talk about difficult to overtake, and we've already seen some outstanding moves in the first couple of laps. Grim Lilith making a move on the Bentley there. I think he's just struggling. He got passed by Kevin Boss at Cascades also. Going into a race replay, what we've got this move from Grim onto the Bentley. Just got a better run out of Cascades, but it looks like got him on traction alone. Was managed to just take the inside line and clean move, and another clean move. Lap 2, no carnage. I'm a little bit lost for words, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I was fully expecting, the big one to happen. Maybe this is the calm race of the two, as we see in the background there, Connor Matheson and Van Kampen going side by side through Knickerbrook. The Scottish driver there just getting the overlap in the number 107 Bentley. He's going to have to go defensive as he comes up the hill. Van Kampen using all of the cylinders in that Mustang down towards the top end of the circuit, and Matheson very sensibly gives up the inside, tries to do the old up and under, and there's contact. God. Van Kampen round into the wall. It's all come undone for the Scottish driver, I think lifting off ever so slightly, but Stephen Van Kampen there in the wall, the number 35, having to wait for everybody to pile through before spinning the Mustang around there. You see him just behind the timing board, perfectly hidden there by Jesse Lee. He gets it round and underway again, but Van Kampen unfortunately with big time loss there, and Matheson's currently getting swallowed up by Richard Whittle. He finds his way through in the number 957, and Martin Foster tries to do the same. There's contact into Denton's. The Pirelli board goes flying. Foster back on the inside. Matheson heads off into the short layout, has to bring the Bentley back on at the end of Cascades. Let's get a race replay of what happened there. We were saying it was also calm. Just at the top of your picture there, contact. Matheson turns in, Foster comes back across. Matheson goes for the sprint line, has to come back on, do a little bit of rally crossing. Of course, lots of cars there being promoted up a few positions. Of course, Teixeira, Whittle, Turner, Galois, Jurashek as well to net a few positions, and Matheson tumbles down the order in the number 107 Bentley. But it's exactly what we were talking about, Callum, wasn't it? One thing happens and it's almost a chain reaction once the train behind you essentially swallows up, and Martin Foster has had another moment somewhere in the lap. That looks like the first chicane, if I say so myself, of Britain's. So Foster in the mid-pack, tumbling down to the bottom. Very unfortunate there for the RPMS driver.
Very unfortunate indeed, and it just seemed to be exactly what we were talking about in qualifying. The consistency there, you get flustered, you make a bit of a mistake on a curb, and the next corner's already in your face. You've got to prep for it, sort yourself out, and if you don't, it just leads to further mistakes and sort of the collision we saw there. Not really sure who's at fault. Definitely one for the steward's box to look at. Got Tia Boot Vuskam into Cascades. This lovely little train here behind the Audi. I think he's chasing him down, maybe to look at a move. Oh, we've got the Ferrari having a little look there. Stevenson behind, but yeah, just it's all about rhythm. That one mistake, we've seen it already with Grim, and we've seen it with a few cars. Just a little bump on the curb, a car's going to be alongside of you. You're unsettled for the next set of corners, and all of a sudden you're just getting swallowed up.
Absolutely. So Joshua Lation currently in that situation. He's got Les Stevenson, Richard Phillip, Dow, Howling, and Packer breathing down his neck in this kind of little train forming behind. And of course, just ahead, Roscam and Manzo, two big names there. Of course, we recognise very well here at RCI. So Lation certainly with his work cut out. Meanwhile, towards the front of the field, it's Carlos Calata-Yud still hunting down Badowski. These guys in about half a second or so, but just behind, of course, you've got Matt Stevens and Ted Edwards. Again, those two drivers could start forming into the back of these guys, and this could be the fight for the top 5 starting to form. Of course, 8 minutes gone on the race clock, 5 laps down for your race leader, and still plenty of action to come. Andy Boardman at the front, some half a second to the good this time of Benjamin Harmon. Bregster slightly dropped back this time, just over half a second on him, 1.2 seconds back to Christopher Streppen, and then a whopping 2 seconds back. There's the gaps as they come down towards Island Bend. Of course, you can see how spaced out the field is now beginning to get as everybody's finding their feet, of course, getting used to the car, maybe getting used to these heavier fuel loads than what they've been practicing with for qualifying, of course, trying to set the ultimate fastest lap time. But it's an interesting thing, isn't it, when you see everybody in slightly new machinery. Of course, we know everybody in this field quite well, Callum. Of course, there's a few new names sprinkled in that I've not quite seen before here at RCI, but you know, the majority of them, you can kind of put your finger on what car they would have picked for the season. And certainly seeing some of these guys in you know, slightly alternate machinery, it certainly lends itself to you know, some interesting pace, doesn't it? Where you think somebody's going to be super quick, suddenly they're slightly off the pace. Come a few rounds, you know, if we head to, you know, round 3, round 4 at the Nordschleife, we might see some of these guys, you know, really come alive in the late stages and start battling with the front runners once they get used to these new cars they've chosen.
Yeah, for those who have picked new cars, you know, they're going to be more comfortable with every lap, and you know, we're seeing a few GTRs, we're seeing a Bentley. You know, those cars aren't driven a lot, which may be why Matheson's had such a struggle in the early stages. He's just not used to the Bentley on a slightly higher fuel load with the colder tyres. But yeah, everyone's going to improve through the season, improve through the race. But just to call out, it's so good to see so many manufacturers on the grid today, and just all the way up to that top 8 that we see before we see the first repeated car in Ted Edwards in the Ford, who's running really well in 8th place on the back of Stevens. It's I've said it 1,000 times today, John, but I can't reiterate. We got a battle for the lead here, all within a second, and this is where we go to. All it takes right now is they're applying that pressure on Boardman. Does he make a mistake? Does he hit a curb slightly incorrectly? That will then bring Hillman to the side, and all of a sudden they're all losing time, and we could go from a 3-man fight to lead, bringing Verstappen or Badowski right back into this. All it takes is one misstep, and applying that pressure is going to be absolutely key for these drivers on Boardman. But it's worth saying, he's in the Mustang. It's a wide old car on a narrow track. It's going to be a mammoth task for one of them to get past him today.
Yeah, I mean, once you chuck a wide car like the Mustang alongside the wide car of the M4, that's certainly going to be a very tricky move to be had. But Benjamin Harmon currently kind of in the ultimate zone, isn't he? I mean, he's in 2nd place. He's got Andy Boardman ahead of him. At the same time, he's got Bregster in the number 25 BMW behind. Of course, both drivers representing RCI Esports. You'd like to think there's not team orders going on, but there's certainly a kind of gentleman's code, isn't there? Where, you know, Bregster could be saying, we're gonna let you have a stab at Boardman. If you can't get through in X amount of minutes, let me through. I'll have a stab and see if I can open the door. Of course, the last thing you want is your teammate to be holding you up in this aspect. Of course, if Bregster finds some good pace in the 25, who knows? Maybe Harmon will let him through. And then, of course, we could see the McLaren and BMW swap. We might see the BMW slightly stronger than the Mustang in some aspects, and then could start seeing that fight. But as everybody condensing up into the Shell Oils hairpin, of course, it's the run off the corner that you want to be looking at more than the entry into the mid corner. And of course, Boardman certainly doing very well to hustle the V8 Mustang around the circuit here. Of course, through the fast sections, you can certainly see how much grunt the Mustang has, pulling out a good gap to Heilmann. But then certainly as we get on the brakes through the mid corner, you see the handling characteristics of the McLaren certainly catching up. And then, of course, stomping on the loud pedal once again up the hill. Andy Boardman's going to pull out a slightly bigger lead until we get to the top of the circuit, of course, at Druids. Benjamin Heilmann closes the gap, and we have a giant game of cat and mouse going on, where, like you say, Callum, lots of manufacturers all have their different kind of strengths and weaknesses. Of course, the Mustang good on power, the McLaren certainly good in the corners, and meanwhile, Brewster just behind, certainly dropping off that last lap in the M4. I can't imagine the tyres are already falling off, but just giving Heilmann maybe some breathing room there.
Yeah, just watching this battle for the past lap, you know, it's ebbing, it's flowing with Brewster just dropping back at the second half of that lap. Something I noticed there was Heilmann, apologies for the bad pronunciation. He had a little look into Lodge Corner. Is that where he's eyeing up the move? He just had a little nose dip, saw if there was space there under Boardman's braking gap, and he's gone defensive into Old Shell. So he's clearly feeling the pressure here, and the more defensive he is, the more he's going to bring Verstappen into this. But it just seems like these three are just edging each other along here. 3.6 seconds clear of Verstappen, and that's not something we say often on this channel, that Verstappen is, you know, falling a little bit off the pack. Usually one of the more consistent drivers here in RCI, but this is opening up spectacularly. One thing I wanted to call out is the RCI esports drivers in different cars. Then they're not people that stick to their cars. You know, they're trying out different things, and you know whether Heilmann wants to give that position to the BMW in the early lap because he might be a little bit stronger, and then they swap to try and get to Boardman. What remains to be seen. They've just dropped a touch back here now, so he won't go for the move, but I'm willing to hedge my bets here. If a move's going to happen for Heilmann for P1, it's happening into Lodge Corner.
Yeah, it'd certainly be an agreement. It's going to happen somewhere, isn't it, where there's a heavy braking zone. McLaren's going to be very, very good, you know, on corner entry, and Heilmann's just going to have to see a slight gap and just nail the brake pedal basically through the firewall and pray the move sticks and room is given. But Andy Boardman, known for being very good on defense, known for drawing out a race essentially all the way to the end before, of course, we will see a kind of maybe late desperate move. We've seen Boardman come to blows with numerous people in RCI before. Once the battle starts hotting up, of course, at the moment everybody's relatively settled, aren't they, Karen? They know, you know, first round of the championship, maybe play it a little bit safe. You don't have to take any risks. You're on for a safe finish, as we see a yellow flag out for the number 50. Just getting back underway. That's Daniel Montero in the GTR, still down in P33, not lost out entirely. Let's have a look what happened through Druids, and there's contact with the Aston Martin. Just trying to work out who that is on the racing line. Very scary for the Mustang coming around. Nicholas Keller also finding his way past the GTR. Very sensible driving from Daniel Montero to get that car back underway. Just trying to work out who that could have been. I think it was Daniels in the number 92, just ahead of Foster making contact there. The lead battle, meanwhile, of course, Andy Boardman still out front. But back to my point, of course, you know, you want to play it a little bit safe as such, I would say, in round one. Of course, you've got the whole calendar ahead of you. There may be tracks where your rivals aren't as strong as you could be. Again, the BOP could certainly be in the favor of your chosen manufacturer at certain circuits. So again, the calendar could come to you quite late in the race. You may be better over the endurances. You know, an hour 30 is quite a long time to focus, especially in the summer weather that we're having at the moment in June and July. And again, that could lead to fatigue, kind of mistakes happening in the real world. Of course, these drivers are only human, as Heilmann looks so close into the Shell Oils corner, but just can't find an overlap. We're going to get a race replay here. This is from the race start, so this is how Nicholas Keller got turned around. There's a purple car making contact with them. That could be possibly Jake Howling, as I see a penalty starting to come in. This is from Kevin Boss's perspective, just ahead of Van Kampen in the Mustang there. There's contact. Keller was sideways. Van Kampen already had contact. Cars scattering left, right and center. And of course, we've got the first penalty coming in of the season from our live stewards. Again, a big thank you and a big shout out to those guys giving up their evening to cast their BDI over tonight's antics, shall we say. So, going to go down the list. We're going to start from, of course, lap 1, turn 1, involving the 11 and the 22, racing incident, minor contact. We're going to go lap 1 to turn 1, involving the 27 and the 621. That's Jake Howling, of course. 20 seconds for the 621 for avoidable contact. We then got lots more racing incidents from lap 2, lap 3, before we get to our next penalty. Lap 3, turn 15, involving the 35 and the 107. It's a 20 seconds for the 107. That was for avoidable contact. Here we go. That was Stephen Van Kampen and Connor Matheson. If you remember, Connor just got much better kind of drive off the corner in the Bentley, slightly misjudged where the nose was, and into the back of Van Kampen they went. Of course, the 35 still circulating around, and Connor Matheson has called it a day, back to the pits for race 1 on this one. And then we've got a few more racing incidents. So lap 4, turn 16, involving the 957 and the 107 racing incident. And then lap 4, turn 2, involving the 44 and the 107. It was a warning for the 44 for turning across the 107, resulting in a contact, which then leads to further avoidable contact. So some things to note there from the stewards. And of course, a slightly different way of the stewarding tonight, as mentioned in Tim Ireland's briefing. Trialing some new stewarding rules for the championship. So takeouts will now be judged in terms of how avoidable the contact was, along with some modifiers on how severe the contact was for the other cars. So taking into account things like damage, reasonable time loss, number of cars involved, etc. Of course, reductions for returning the position after an aggressive overtake or contact, or overtaking off the track. Of course, the penalty will be reduced as previously used. These will not be given, as they will be factored into the system used above. So stewards casting their eye over things a little bit more maybe in depth than what we're kind of used to, looking at things such as how severe the contact was, damage inflicted, time loss, and cars involved as a result of the action, etc, etc. So you might see a few stewards' decisions that we may not be used to up here in the box. Meanwhile, Daniel Montero has found himself with an incident down in the Shell Oils hairpin, although well avoided. That's one of the Mustangs off in the gravel. I can only assume that's Marco Facuscio by the colours of that car, typically choosing the red and white combination. He is, of course, back in the pit lane as well, so retiring the car for race 1. At the front of the field, though, looks like Bridgestone slightly inconsistent in their pace. One moment Callum there nowhere near Heilmann, then the next they're kind of, stuffed under the rear wing once again. We see Heilmann dropping back ever so slightly on Boardman. Boardman's then dropped back into the claws of Heilmann. So it's all kind of, it's all relatively calm. They're playing it a little bit safe, but of course, just over 10 minutes to go on the clock. Will we see some desperation coming in from people trying to make up those all-important places?
Yeah, there could very well be desperation, but also you've got to remember this is race 1. Do you want to make the risky move, or do you want to secure the 2 third positions, the 2 second positions? Just going back on your point around the calendar, do you want to optimize the tracks which aren't really suitable to your car? Do you want to, hit a bit of damage limitation if you feel like it's a car that you shouldn't be scoring as well in? These things are all going to come into factor for what you will say the top 3, top really 7 to 10 people are all going to be in a fight for the championships here, and even though this is round 1, they'll probably say they're here for the race, but we can all imagine that in the back of their mind they're thinking about the championship here. Do we want to go for the risk? Do we want to make a move that upsets another driver? Then you start next to each other. It's a bit more aggressive in the second race. There's so much going through these heads, and this battle is absolutely fascinating, just as you point out, ebbing and flowing, and that could be from a tiny mistake. Absolutely love that camera angle going through that first chicane, but battles up and down the field. Just looking at the track map, you can see queues forming everywhere. I think the number 8 of Ted Edwards, who appears to have jumped up 2 places, is leading a bit of a train there in P6. Brilliant drive from Ted Edwards, and all the way back even to Old Shell Corner there are just gatherings of cars, and I don't really know what to say, as you could tell by my absolute waffle there, John, but I'm absolutely fascinated by this. I think we expected more carnage, but for the 35 drivers, I think we can give a massive pat on the back. This has been some brilliant, respectful racing, You've seen some brilliant overtakes so far, and we've still got 8 minutes to go. Do we think we'll get a desperation overtake? We've got a overtake happening here on the Audi. Beautifully on the inside. Just got a better run through Cascades there and use that to his advantage. The Ferrari coming through. Oh, can he hold it through O'Shell round the outside? If he could just get on traction. Looks like he may get it. 2 into 1 corner, and the Audi thinks better of it. Well played there. Being a bit smart again. Just thinking he needs to maximise his points, not take too many risks. It looks like the McLaren has made a little bit of a mistake, so Keller is on his... He could get 2 and 1 here into the second chicane. We've got someone coming into the pits. Richard Phillips is he calling it a day? Has he not had a great race? What's going on here, do you think, John?
Yeah, look to the stewards. A few more reports have come from the stewards
I didn't
team
even
at the
notice.
moment. We've got a lap 7, turn 1. That's involving the 27, the 107. 15 seconds for the 107, which then results in a disqualification reaching license point limit. Lap 7, turn 12, involving the 92 and the 44. That's a racing incident, minor contact. And then we've got lap 8, turn 5, involving the 96 and the 46. So 10 seconds for the 46, once again for avoidable contact. So the 22 appears to have come down the pit lane as a result of track limits, which had a circuit where we were saying how old school it is. There's not a lot of runoff, plenty of grass, gravel, and no extra curbing really. That's quite impressive from kind of 22 minutes of racing, roughly, give or take 24 minutes maybe at a push on that one. But turn 1, quite famously, very easy to get track limits. Of course, the AstroTurf lends itself to being the faster line to take. However, too much of it, and you will certainly find yourselves with warnings. So, of course, picking up drive-through penalty in some 22, 23 minutes of racing, highly impressive from Richard Phillips on that one. But takes a drive-through penalty, down the lane he comes, out into P23, 5 seconds off Richard Whittle. Of course, 6 minutes to go. You've kind of got to make about a second a minute just to get near to the back of Whittle. Then you have to execute the pass as well, which is going to be very tricky indeed. And I think Richard Phillips kind of nestled himself into P23 quite solidly at the moment. However, plenty of RPMS cars up and down the grid. I mean, if we were running a team championship, a constructors championship, I think RPMS would absolutely, beat everybody out the water with the sheer number of cars that they've turned up in tonight. Of course, every driver taking a different manufacturer. Every car has a livery. It's fantastic to see, of course, the community spirit fully alive with the RPMS team here. Martin Lawrence mentioning something quite interesting in our YouTube chat as well. Of course, Christopher Streppard not forgetting part of RCI Esports, as well as we see a bit of a traffic jam down into the Knickerbrook chicane. Ted Edwards wants no part of this, probably looking in his mirrors. Matt Stevens makes up a position on Badowski, and now Ulrich sets to try and get a run out of the Knickerbrook chicane up the hill, although I think Badowski is just about fended off the Aston Martin behind the number 41 there, of course, coming in to Druids at the top. Everybody back into single file, but that looked very congested as they all stood on the brakes. Meanwhile, at the back of the pack, of course, Tom Shipston rubbing his hands with glee, thinking he's going to maybe make up a few positions here if, of course, drivers begin tripping up each other, forcing each other off the road, or just making silly mistakes while under pressure. We've got a yellow flag out for the number 13. That's in the Shell Oils hairpin. They get back underway, showing yellows and whites. That's Andrew Harvey in the AMG team group at M Racing. It's a very awkward rejoin from the inside of that corner. It's a blind approach from the left-hand side. He gets back underway in P32. Let's catch a race replay. Already round coming into the corner. Not sure if Keller was maybe involved there. We're, of course, speculating up here in the box. And Jurashek in the Audi R8 also finding his way through as well. So not good, although I'm sure the stewards will soon be giving us their opinion on that one. Martin Ulrich asking about the BOP in the championship. It is standard ACC BOP here tonight. No custom BOP for this championship. As we catch another race replay, this time Tom Shipston up the inside of Ulrich at the Shell Oils hairpin, and that's exactly what I was saying, Callum. Tom Shipston rubbing his hands with glee at those fighting ahead, and he's managed to make up a position into P9, but certainly no, timing is doing me dirty here. P9 for Tom Shipston as the camera comes back. Ulrich in the back there from P10, and meanwhile Mike Redford and Daniel Crimson been working together quite well as they both run wide out of Druids. they're setting to close themselves up onto this train as well.
Yep, and once again, all stemmed from that one move, everyone losing a bit of time, and all of a sudden, everyone's chasing up the pack. It has to be said, a wonderful move from Stevens there around the outside of the second chicane. Crimson looking for that move on Mike Redford. These two have been at it all race. I saw Mike Redford get Crimson earlier on, but he's not done yet. He wants that position back, all while chasing this pack as they barrow down. And yes, Tom Shipston rubbing his hands together, sees the opportunity on the Aston of Ulrich, now chasing down Badowski. Will he get him? Les trying to go around the outside, not sure if he gets it. Will he get a bit of a run into Old Shell? That's don't think the stewards are going to take too kindly to that, and with already a 10 seconds on his name sliding there out of Old Shell, I think that may be another one coming his way. And it's worth pointing out as we watch the replay, yeah, just a bit optimistic. The Audi did maybe not leave enough space, but he had full racing room there, in my opinion. We'll see what the stewards say, but it's worth saying, with these penalties, we have a 30-minute race here today. So, you know, the gaps don't open up as much as you'd expect. You know, we're all very bunched together, as you can see from the track map and the battles up and down the field. That 10 seconds is going to hurt a lot more than it usually does on a standard race. I mean, you can see that 10 seconds is going to drop him back a good 5 spots, and Howling with the 20 seconds, he's going to be dropping back massively even more. So really, getting any penalty here is really going to cost you, not only for this race but for the championship going forward. It does look like with that incident and the 10 seconds he got already, this may be a race to forget for Stevenson. Take a deep breath, get ready for round 2 and score as many points as he can.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's all about that mental reset, isn't it, at this point? Just kind of forgetting what's happened in race 1, trying to, you know, clear your head for race 2 and seeing if you can, you know, really focus on getting a solid result in the bag for that. Of course, the incident into the shell was hairpin. It's a little bit weird, you know, there was a gap there. Manzo braked and, you know, trail braked into the corner, which typically you do because you have to shift all the weight to the front axle to really point the car through the cambered section and then nail the throttle as you come out of the banking. So Les saw a gap, Les went for the gap closed. Very unfortunate, 2 cars collided. Of course, we will be having a look at the stewards' reports. We'll keep you updated on what they find along the way. Roscam still on the back of Packer, just ahead in the number 6 Mustang. Again, another name that we've not seen here before at RCI. Of course, Packer in the number 6, electing to choose the Mustang. Again, one of a few just in the field at the moment, and putting on a great show in the debut race, if I say so myself. You know, slightly in the mid-pack, should we say. Of course, 34 cars, currently in about P16. So, you know, it's a solid result for the first race of the season. Of course, the clock is counting down. We're just about to hit the checkered flag status, so this will be the last lap for everybody on the field. And Andy Boardman, since we've been watching everybody else in the field, managed to stretch out a gap to Benjamin Harmon behind. 0.7 seconds, Reichter just behind him. 0.9 seconds to the Gooden, and a big gap back to Christoph Verstappen, which normally we don't say all too often up here in the broadcast booth. 2.9 seconds to the good behind. Carlos Calatiad, 8.9 seconds behind. And then Ted Edwards, 4.5 seconds in behind him. Matt Stevens was close to Ted Edwards, dropped back off the back of him ever so slightly. 0.5 second to Badowski, 0.7 to Shipston, and another 0.7 to Ulrich. And Mike Redford just outside your top 10 as well. So, you know, Callum, we said it earlier in the broadcast, didn't we? It was going to be a chaotic race from what we thought. We had a moment of chaos when drivers started finding their feet, started trying to find all the important kind of space available. But relatively speaking, this has been probably one of the cleanest races with one of the most amount of drivers on such a small and compact circuit. But it has been Andy Boardman in the number 69 Greased Weasel Racing Ford Mustang that takes round 1 here at the British GT Championship here at RCI, and a great drive from Andy Boardman, fending off the pressure of Benjamin Harmon and Philip Braister behind, two names that are very scary and menacing in the esports realm of things. Christopher Streppen just behind as well, and Carlos Calatayud as Christoph there filters through the middle of everybody. Carlos Calatayud, the rebound racing coming in P5, Ted Edwards P6, Matt Stevens P7, Badowski P8, Tom Shipston P9, and Martin Ulrich rounds out your top 10. And what a realm of manufacturers we have in the top 10. We have a repeat from Ford, a repeat from Ferrari, but everybody else, I believe, and Aston Martin, sorry, everybody else uniquely in their own manufacturers. So BOP proving to be quite well done, shall we say, here at Oulton Park today. We've got a few of the latter half of the field starting to finish now. Of course, Martin Foster, Les Stevenson parked off to the side there. Has he finished? He surely hasn't finished, has he, Callum?
I don't think he has. If you could just see on the left-hand side, he's dropping down the order. He may have made a mistake and just gone, well, that's me done. I've got 10 seconds. He might not be very happy. Maybe even running out of fuel. I'm unsure. Oh, it could be a fuel scenario.
It is.
Going for the push. Ted getting involved.
It's got to be.
Love to see it.
It's got to be fuel,
people coming together to get people to the end.
And this is the community spirit, isn't it, of RCI, of course. We got enough fuel in Ted Edwards' Mustang to get to the end. Grim Lilith is just a mere spectator in the scenario. Ted with the hazards on, warning everybody behind. I think everybody else has finished on the circuit, so there isn't a single car, you know, lapping around under green flag conditions. And Les Stevenson getting pushed by Ted Edwards. I'm not sure if Grim Lilith is the backup car in case Ted runs out of fuel, maybe pushing Les to the line. But the Roca Poker number 46 finds his way through Druids. This is very interesting things indeed. Kevin Boss also joining the frame here in the Wheelie Slow Racing Team number 31. And speaking of the Wheelie Slow Racing Team, some of you may have noticed on the website for Sundays, there's a brand new event also on there. It's the Wheelie Slow Sunday Grand Prix. So races slightly longer in length, 2-hour races, beginning at Monza, which of course happened yesterday, heading to Silverstone, Paul Ricard, Spa, Nürburgring GP, and Suzuka. That's every week on Sunday. Of course, Les Stevenson there being pushed across the line by Ted Edwards, Grim Lilith, and Kevin Boss. Fantastic community spirit there. So Les Stevenson does finish race 1, albeit not in an ideal position. Maybe a couple more litres needed in that McLaren to get Les to the end there. But fantastic stuff from everybody involved. And of course, the results currently on your screen, they have been down the left-hand side of the screen. But of course, Andy Boardman beats Benjamin Harmon and Philip Braister to the checker. Christopher Streppen, Carlos Calatayud, Edward Stephen, Badowski, Shipston, and Ulrich round out your top 10. And then some good names just outside, including Redford, Crimson, Manzo, of course, contact with Les Stevenson. That wasn't ideal. Ross Cam, of course, Kevin Boss in there as well. Richard Whittle, Richard Phillips after his drive-through penalty. We got a couple of drivers shuffled about with their time penalties added on. Of course, Howling, Foster, Daniels, to name a few. And of course, Connor Matheson at the bottom, reaching maximum license points in round 1. That hasn't gone all too well for the Scottish Bentley driver. But of course, the Wheelie Slow Sunday Grand Prix on the website, if you do want to get your name down for that one. Plenty of space still available there. And of course, Saturday Night Out this week continues as we head to Kyalami. That's for round 3 again. Saturday Night Out, kind of designed for those on a slightly more skewed time zone, should we say, than of course the European faction of RCI. So if you are looking to get involved in some nightly racing, maybe in your late night evenings in Europe, and that will be the one for you. E-tron De Jong currently leading Jordan Daly and Tyler Jason Lavelle in pro. Meanwhile, Callum Kerrigan, you're leading silver, apparently, from Mark Reinhard and Adnan Pazina. And of course, round 3 heading to Kyalami. That's some good showing there, Callum.
Well, I'm glad you pointed out my night out performances, John, and not my performance in the recent wheelie slow Grand Prix. It was a
We'll gloss over that one.
it was a great turnout, but as always, the myth of the sausage curb and Ascari once again took my car about 30 minutes into that Grand Prix, and I was having a great battle with K-Boss. But yeah, currently leading the Silver Championship in Night Owl. It's a great championship for anyone that's on a little bit of a skewed time zone. For me, I'm a 10 o'clock bedtime kind of person. I struggle to stay awake, let alone concentrate for that long. But I just wanted to go back to that. I could hear the smile in your voice, John. But the group of people, I know they're sitting there in a voice chat in RCI at the minute, just showing that communal spirit, pushing Les over the line. The moment he started flashing his lights, I was quite literally crying with laughter. That was one of the best things I've seen. I almost want to say I want to see it again in this race too, but I actually want him to put the correct amount of fuel in this time round. But yeah, just echoing the RCI community spirit. I've been racing with these guys for about 2 years, made some good friends. We all have a good laugh with each other, and getting involved is just it's so good and so important. We've got a really good bunch of people here that race week in, week out, respect each other, help each other out. And on that note, we're ready for race 2. But yeah, ready for this one. I can't believe we've got a second one. I almost forgot for a second there, but here we are. We've just had an incredible race 1, especially for the lead. The battle's up and down the field, and here we go, round 2. Who's your money on, John?
It's got to be a solid run from Andy Boardman, I'd say, again. I mean, consistency, he is very good at replicating results. Raced him a few times in, I think it was a Thursday British GT Championship, and he was just very consistent there. I mean, if it wasn't for the strong BOP of the Mercedes, then, of course, I probably wouldn't have beaten him. I'll be honest, the BOP was certainly favoured in my side. Just under 4 minutes to go before, of course, we send cars off on the formation lap. Of course, the grid is an exact copy of race 1, so one qualifying session will set the tone for the whole 2 races that we have here tonight. As Callum said, of course, 2 half-an-hour sprint races, so don't go anywhere. We'll be bringing you the next one very shortly. A couple of questions in chat. We do have an incident, of course, from Keller, the number 13, waiting to see the verdict, of course, being pointed over to the Steward channel within the Discord. You do have to scroll quite a way down to find it, but it is certainly in there, should be viewable for all on that one. So post-race, we do have a couple of additional things handed out. So lap 16, turn 5, involving the 13 and the 27. It was a 15 seconds for the number 27 for avoidable contact. We then had a lap 16, turn 5, involving the 13 and the 77. It was a warning for the 13 for not holding their brakes. We then have an incident on lap 18, turn 5, involving the 222 and the 46. It was 10 seconds for the 46 for avoidable contact. So just to add insult to injury there for Les Stevenson, running out of fuel on the last lap. Of course, as Callum said, a very good kindred community spirit here at RCI, and if you do want to get involved with us here anytime, day or night, of course, head on over to the website. That's racerci.com, where you can check out all of our events anytime, day or night, pre-qualify if needed. I don't think anything on the website at the moment requires pre-qualifying, so it should be a nice, easy sign-up if you do want to get involved with us here. Of course, down below, you can also find links to Discord, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So if you do want to see what happens behind the scenes at RCI, that would certainly be the place to go. Of course, Discord being the main kind of community hub for everyone here. And if you weren't here earlier on in the broadcast, of course, a big announcement from RCI this week, of course, partnered with Motorsport UK Esports. So a very exciting thing coming in the pipeline there for us here at RCI. Basically, Motorsport UK are the governing body for four-wheel competitive motorsport in the UK, representing not only competitors, volunteers, clubs, and also fans. And their role is, of course, to help elevate a level of sim racing esports by providing support and guidance to communities and event hosts across the UK. So if you do want to check them out, you can head over to esports with an s.motorsport, no s, uk.org. check them out, check all their offerings out, and of course their real life offerings as well. You can have a free membership, you can have a paid membership, but each of course netting their own benefits. And Motorsport UK also hosting the qualifying leg for the FIA Motorsports Games UK. Again, that's for UK drivers. So if you are a UK driver listening to this, you think, I got some pace in RCI, not RCI, sorry, I got some pace in ACC and iRacing. Of course, you can certainly check out their 2 qualifying events. I think Formula 4 is what will govern you for the iRacing leg. And of course, GT3 is what governs you for the ACC leg. So if you do want to fancy your chances, fancy being maybe the next James Baldwin, who knows, as you take to the main stage in Valencia in October, that's certainly going to be one for you. I think it's a qualifying stage. You then got a top 15 that then gets drawn at Williams HQ. So again, that's going to be a very good experience in its own right. So certainly head on over to the website and see what the offerings on the table are. As we begin the formation lap, once again, drivers, of course, going to be crucially building those tyre temperatures. They're going to be, weaving, dragging brakes, as we already see Andy Boardman there on the brake pedal, trying to generate heat, of course, through the disc, into the rim and into the Pirelli tyre. And didn't see anyone complaining of tyre pressure loss in the first race. However, of course, that could be a thing with excessive curb usage, especially in the early stages, Callum, of the race. Really got to look after the tyres and, bring them in gradually more than, just going full flat out from the get-go on them. I really find the Pirelli kind of keeps a good life. If you treat it well in your stint, it certainly yields rewards towards the end.
Indeed, indeed. You got to treat it as nice as you can, but also while trying to not lose as many positions. It's all about the efficiency in the tyre, and especially on this pace lap, with 35 cars on the field, making sure your tyres are in an adequate window, so you can, when you hit that brake pedal, when you turn into those first couple of corners, you can trust the car to go where you want it to go, to maybe avoid a collision or make that optimistic move just to get 2 spots into T1 or into T2. So tyre warm-up is absolutely crucial here, and I'm interested to see what the mentality is going into this race. A few people that may have had a poor performance in the first one, maybe made a couple of incidents, so they take it more conservative to get points on the board, or they just go, right, we've got to go for it. I'm obviously the most interested in this top 3 fight. It was nose to tail all race last race, and for me, I know you've called out Mr. Boardman again for another win in the world's widest Mustang, but for me it looked like Hillman and Brejka had the better race pace. So if they can make a good start, poke a nose in, or work together to get ahead of Boardman, I think we could be in for a different result.
Yeah, I'm wondering, will we see maybe a bump draft down into turn 1 to try and get Heilman ahead of Boardman? Who knows? Of course, we saw the SRO, of course, hosted the esports leg of the Spa 24 just last weekend, and if you watch the race start, there was a little bit of bump drafting to try and get cars into keen positions at the beginning of that one. Of course, a few drivers in the chat discussing race 1, of course, in the Discord. Benjamin noting the Mustang is ridiculously good on power. I won't quote him one for one, but certainly not impressed with the BOP maybe that the Mustang has here at Oulton Park. And we did say in the broadcast, of course, the Mustang certainly looks very good on the straights, and McLaren looks equally good going into the corners though. So a bit of a tit for tat. Let's see how race 2 will pan out. Of course, cars now 2 by 2 as they come around the last turn of Lodge Corner, of course, up through Deer Leap, rolling towards the line, 60 to 70 kph on the clock, getting ready to go green once again. Cars look a little bit spaced out in the backfield compared to race 1, and the green flag drops, and Heilman gets an electric start this time. Brewster to the outside, can't get the overlap through turn 1. Andy Boardman runs himself a little bit wide. That's going to allow Benjamin Heilman to pull side by side as they come down into Dentons, into Cascades. The field looks very, very compact, 3 wide in places. We've got to avoid these bumps cars hitting them. Looks very unstable. There's grass and dust and gravel being kicked up in the forefront of the shot. Theobald Roskam is off to the side. Nicholas Keller running down the grass alongside Carlos Calatayud, making it 3 wide for the Ferraris at the front of the field in the mid-pack. Theobald Roskam joins at the back of the field, and everybody checks up for Shell Oil's corner very cautiously indeed. Back into single file. Everybody goes, but Touchwood looks relatively clean as we head towards the first chicane of Britain's. Of course, the poles taking a battering, being forced out of the way early on in the lap, but Andy Boardman has got the start that he wanted. He is at the head of the field, although bringing with him this time the Snake, the train. It looks a lot more compact. Heilmann is really trying to hustle the McLaren forwards. Of course, with him brings Brewster and Verstappen in P4. Of course, we've got an RCI 2, 3 and 4, so Heilmann should be relatively unfazed, knowing behind is his teammates and knowing that they're not going to make any desperate kind of dangerous lunges along the way. Meanwhile, Richard Whittle side by side with Packer down into Druids. They go turn 15. It's Archie Bargy. Whittle goes off to the grass. Drivers left. We've got an Audi R8 of Jurasek spinning into the inside. Very well held from the Polish driver in the number 77 orange shark car. He rejoins at the back of the field. And relatively speaking, Callum, other than the break in around about the mid-pack, everybody unscathed on that first lap.
I tell you what, those views of just everyone coming from T1 into Cascade, it just looks like the entire track is flooded with cars, and to not have that level of carnage just shows the level of respect these drivers have for each other. Mike Redford getting all left and right trying to find a gap past that Lamborghini, but what's happened there? The 27 knocking out Redford. It looks like he's just got it completely wrong there. Keller on Redford, they both joined relatively okay. Is he trying to make an optimistic move? Is he going to let Grimm through? Oh, he's let Grimm through. Smart there, just regroup, go for it. A little bump on the curb, but going back to that lap one, I was watching we've got a race replay actually to review here. This is the incident we just saw with Keller. He tries to make the dive up the inside. There wasn't enough space, completely miscalculated that. Not sure if the stewards are going to take too kindly, and I can only imagine Redford is not too happy with that. We're here with the lead pack. That was tight through the first lap. It seemed to be side by side through Hillman and Boardman. Hillman doing everything he could to try and get past that number 69, that Mustang in the first lap, because that's really maybe his only opportunity if the Mustang does have as much power as he said in the chat post race one. Now he's got to go for that move again, and again I do think it's coming at Lodge, but Verstappen really holding on to the back of this queue better this lap. I did see at the end of race one he did get a fastest lap of that race, so there is clearly pace in that Aston. He may have found something in that race one which is going to put him in strong contention for race two.
Yeah, I think the Aston picked up the fastest lap very early on as well. So, you know, what could have been maybe had Verstappen had a little bit of a slipstream along the way. I just want to touch on the Redford and Keller incident we just witnessed on the race replay. I'm pretty sure the bump on the Ferrari, he caught the inside tyre wall, which stopped the Ferrari spearing any further into the corner, which was quite weird to watch. Keller certainly picking up a lot of damage there, and there's a bit of Ferrari friendly fire. That's Calatayud on Lation being turned around. That's the number 97 out of contention now, and Dow in the number 420 will be pressuring Calatayud into the Knickerbrook chicane, and everybody relatively single file. There's still a yellow flag out for the number 97 while he waits for the whole field to stream past. That's going to be heartbreaking for Joshua Lation. Such a good race one. He'll find himself at the back of the queue this time, gets back underway. White flag disappears off his car, and he now finds himself towards the back for the adeptly named maybe Spinala Motorsport number 97. The Welsh driver not coming off too well through Britain. So let's catch a race replay. Side by side it was, caught the curb, got a bit sideways, couldn't jump on the power as quick as Carlos could, and that's just where the Ferrari got turned, and then having to wait for the train of cars to pass through. Of course, 34 cars making the grid for race two. That's a lot of cars to watch go past you as you see yourself tumble down the order. Meanwhile, though, Benjamin Harman tucked under the wing of Andy Boardman this time. 0.17 seconds to the good. Boardman has to make a break in Island Bend. That's going to allow the overlap for Harman, but no around the outside move is possible in Shell Oil's corner. If you do make it, it's a very brave move, and your opponent has certainly had an issue through that corner to do so. Tucking back into single file, though, just in the background, of course, you've got Brewster and Verstappen, so two teammates of Heilmann's. It allows him to, attack Andy Boardman much more ferociously than maybe he would, of course, knowing that the car behind isn't going to make any late lunges or desperation moves. But Heilmann certainly looking very fired up, Callum, in race 2. He's much closer to Boardman this time than he has ever been, I would say, in race 1 consecutively, lap after lap.
Oh yeah, he's hungry, and this is really where the McLaren's going to do well through Druids, that better cornering speed than the Mustang. It doesn't look like he gained too much. Will he go for that little look into Lodge? No, but you can see he's turning in a lot earlier than the Mustang does. I have to say, with the trio of RCI Esports cars behind there, knowing the outcome of race 1, do we not trial Brezhko going ahead, seeing if he can make a little bit of a difference, attack in different places, make Boardman, go out of position, similar to what Heilmann did into Old Shell? Is that not something up for grabs? Or by the looks of it, Heilmann is hungry and right again, out of Cascades, on the back of Boardman. Is he going to go for the same, just try to displace his line? We'll have a look. Exactly the same, just displacing Boardman's line into Old Shell, but Boardman knows you can't pass here, so he's just holding that inside line, knowing that no one can go around him, ensuring that this chicane's clear, and then he knows he's clear for the second chicane. The exit here is so crucial.
Yeah, the grunt of the Mustang, though, just pulls it so nicely over the top of course, the hilltop section down towards turn 10. There's no real answer for the McLaren. We've got a yellow flag out once again on the exit of Shell Oil's corner. Not sure what's happened down there. It's a very short-lived one. Back underway, you see Benjamin Harman there wrestling the wheel as he comes out of the Knickerbrook chicane, really on the limit. But it's an interesting point you make, Callum. Could Brewster get near, of course, the 69 car at the head of the field? We've got a replay here. This is Kevin Boss through the chicane. That's Grim Lilith into the side, and Mike Redford also finds contact on to the wheelie slow Mustang, and that was coming out of Britain's turn 9 essentially on that one. Kevin Boss shuffled all the way down to P21 at the moment. Just got a little bit loose on the exit of 8, I would say, caught the curb into 9, and the car kind of snapped back on itself. Of course, the Mustang is instant torque in that car. It's very, naturally aspirated V8. You haven't got to wait for that turbo spool up that you normally have to wait for, of course, in the likes of the BMW M4, of course, the Vantage, the Ferrari, the Nissan, to name a few. Of course, the McLaren, Les Stevenson coming under pressure, this time from Packer into turn 1. Old Hall corner around the outside. Packer is going to have to go. No grip around the outside. The compression on the inside really kind of helps the car get through that corner very safely indeed. You do need to be on the inside to attempt to move anywhere here, really, at Oulton Park. It's quite rare to see anybody attempt to go around the outside. I mean, it sometimes works in Island Bend if you're very brave, but it is a very, risky move, to say the least, as the train now begins to form into the Shell Oil's corner. Of course, we've got Packer, we've got Turner, we've got Galois, we've got Roscam, Withall in this pack forming here. This is like a 5-car train starting to form, and Les Stevenson sees it in his mirror. Packer hooks a little bit too much curb, and here comes the train. It's going to swallow up everybody. Roscam gets a bad run off the corner. That's going to allow Withall to pick up a position, although going to have to go defensive. Galois is going to look in his mirror and see that everybody behind is jostling for position. Withall and Roscam nearly come to blows through the Knickerbrook chicane, and they do. Roscam is turned. Richard Withall, dab of the brakes there. Looks like he's going to slow up and allow Roscam back through. Although, of course, the new format of stewarding, I'm not sure if that's going to do any benefits at all. Let's catch a race replay here. Withall on the outside. Of course, Roscam then becomes the outside, which then becomes the inside. And I don't think... that's a tricky one to call, Callum. It almost looked like Roscam could have been a little bit more to the right than he was.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one to call for the stewards room. Not really much in it, and I know you've mentioned that him letting Ross Cam back through won't affect his penalty if the stewards do deem him at fault. But what it does do is, shows that level of respect that we do have when driving. I know that 99% of these drivers, if they do feel like they're at fault, they'll let the other driver through. Ultimately, we want to race fairly, we want to race cleanly, and that's echoed across the whole grid. Just going to the lead battle, 1 second separating the top four. Verstappen hanging on much better this race, and Hillman just constantly within that 1/2 to 3/10 of a second behind. He's just waiting for that opportunity, waiting for that mistake. It didn't come in race 1, it may come in race 2, and just keep constantly applying that pressure. As we see, you can tell, we've gone now to Textera, who's chasing down the Audi of Yao Manso. Textera having a much better race. I think he ran into a lot of trouble with the Bentley in race 1, so he's comfortably sitting in P12 in a Nissan, may I add. He's enjoying himself, cutting to Verstappen now, holding on to this train, waiting for the opportunity. He knows if it blows up with the cars ahead, he's going to be absolutely laughing. And by the looks at the angle, it looks like Hillman could have a run on Boardman here. He does. Is he going to go for the same move round the outside of Old Shell, displacing Mr. Boardman? Exactly the same, but Boardman places the car to absolute perfection. It's not his first rodeo. It's not his first rodeo in this race. Going through the chicane, Verstappen having a little look on Breshka there. He's got a lot more pace in this second race, or it's just the consistent battling, holding this sort of train of leaders up. I mean, we thought it was good in race 1, John. We've now got a 4-car battle for the lead. It's even better in race 2.
Yeah, we've now thrown, of course, Christoph Verstappen into the mix just for good measure here at the front of the grid. 4 different manufacturers duking it out. You've got the blue oval at the front, of course, the McLaren just behind, BMW and Aston Martin all being represented in this lead fight, and each car, of course, having its own kind of, benefits and weaknesses, should we say, or strengths and weaknesses, probably a better way to put it. Of course, Andy Boardman gets the grunt off the corner. Benjamin Harmon certainly gets the corner in there, and it looks like the Aston Martin certainly better on corner entry than the BMW, but once again the torque of the BMW pulling it nicely off the corner. I think Valentino Rossi did an interview maybe last season before with WRT, where he explains, of course, driving the Audi R8 versus driving the BMW, it's night and day. The torque off the corner in the BMW is apparently out of this world. It's something very tricky that Rossi has had to adjust to. So again, the drivers in game know exactly the kind of, the strengths of the BMW. It does pull very well off the corners, but it does suffer at the top end as a result. And you just see how much Christoph Verstappen closes up on braking, and it looks like Harmon
there was a little tap there.
Was there a tap, or was it
I
just
thought I saw a tap.
Too eager? I'm sure we'll catch a race replay here from our broadcaster Jesse Lee. Let's get an aerial shot this time as the cars disappear behind the trees, of course, into Shell Oil's corner. Benjamin Harmon certainly much better, I think. Yeah, just too eager on the throttle. Brayster wasn't close enough to tap, but certainly I can see where you're coming from the angle of Christoph Verstappen. Definitely looked like something was awry, but I think Benjamin Harmon just a little bit too keen with the loud pedal as he tried to match Andy Boardman's performance off the corner. And once again, Boardman pulls clear very briefly of the trio behind, should we say. Of course, this is the battle for essentially the last step of the podium. Of course, Christoph Verstappen in prime viewing, as you say, Callum. Should this all kick off, Verstappen is certainly going to benefit very well indeed out of this scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. And what he's going to be doing right now, just biding his time, waiting for the move. Breshka putting a lot of pressure on Hillman after his result, or his tyres a little bit too hot after that little spin. So you've got to manage them. I mean, they all seem to be cascading back down to Boardman again. So look at this, right on the back of Boardman, coming out of Cascades. The McLaren's got so much better cornering speed. We're going to see rinse and repeat, slightly displacing Boardman picking that line, no one can get past, and I think it's all going to come down to Lodge corner, or if we're going to see a mistake into the chicane. Other than this, it's extremely tight.
Yeah, very tight indeed at the front of the field. If you look at the track map, it's even tighter probably.
We might have a run here.
These guys, it might have a run. Well spotted, Gallum indeed. Brewster certainly looks more kind of competitive over the top of the brow, but I think he's just doing that teammate thing, isn't he? It's just the gentleman's agreement where Bridgestone isn't going to make any kind of late dives or, you know, overly zealous moves and just kind of remaining line of stern with the McLaren. But I kind of feel that Bridgestone might have the pace to, you know, outdo Andy Boardman in this one. Of course, the both cars very good off the corners. The M4 certainly a lot better through the corner, I would say, than the Mustang. The Mustang is quite a slippery car to try and contain if you do drive it at the limit. The M4 much kind of safer, has to torque to pull it off the corner. Of course, not many straights where the top speed is all too affected here at Oulton Park, and I feel the 796 lets the 25 go. I feel the 25 might be able to do something against Boardman's 69.
Yeah, he very well could, and I think it just comes down to the car's characteristics. Can the Beamer perform better than the Mustang in areas that matter? Down into the Lodge corner, down over the hill into the second chicane. We know that Hillman's got a lot better cornering speed, but it's not giving him the position to make the moves where it counts. Brezka there running a bit wide for Strapen, just following his line. And just look, Hillman right on the back coming out of Old Shell, trying to force the mistake here. May not get it because these guys are top drivers. It'll be rare if we see a mistake coming out on such an area, which I know I'd be making a mistake once every 3 laps, and it just looks like he can't make a move. A little bit far back here, but maybe setting himself up for that better cornering into Druids, get the run into Lodge. And I think if he's got to be high risk here. If he wants to make the move, he's got to go for it. We've got a race replay. What have we got? Just maybe of a Strapen mistake. We did see a plume of smoke in the background. Misses the apex there. Just cuts the corner. Joins a respect. But now he's lost a bit of time to the train. Can he regain that time back into the train, or will it be dropping back as we saw into race 1? I think with Boardman taking the more defensive lines into Old Shell and a couple of the other corners, Verstappen will be right back onto the tail, and he already is ready to join up and rubbing his hands together for a mistake to happen. We've got another race replay coming up. Bruno Teixeira's had an issue similar to what he's had in the first race. We just see him rejoining there and getting back on his feet, but I'm not sure if we'll see what's happened to him. But a bit of a race to forget in race 1, and it looks like his luck is starting to dwindle in race 2. Still P15, so he's not lost out much. He was P12 when I last saw him on the leaderboard, so whatever mistakes happened, he hasn't lost touch too much. We've got a race replay. This could be Teixeira. No, this is between Daniel Crisen and another one of the RPMS cars. Lovely side by side coming out of Lodge. Who's got the traction? You'd like to think GTR. And by the looks of going to it live, it was the GTR that got ahead, and a little bit of argy-bargy going into Old Shell between Yao Manso and Daniel Crinson. A little bit of a fight between teammates, always respectful, no love lost, but it's worth saying from the RPMS guys, all in different cars again. There's no team car, just team livery. We've cut into Joshua Lacer. I'll hand over to you, John.
Yeah, RPMS, you know, certainly representing very strong indeed today. Of course, Matt Stevens, Daniel Crinson, Yao Manzo, and Richard Phillips, all in a different manufacturers. And of course, not forgetting Martin Foster in the McLaren as well. So plenty of RPMS drivers on the grid. And like I say, no love lost, always putting on a great show as Joshua Lation gets into the back of Kevin Boss into Britain's chicane. That's maybe, you know, Kevin Boss just breaking a little bit earlier than what Lation thinks. Of course, if Lation's used to racing people in the mid-pack, of course, Kevin Boss's pace might be a little bit off. Kevin Boss adopting the Mustang as of last Wednesday, I believe, when we raced together at Valencia. Myself and Kevin on Twitch on my channel predominantly. Kevin wasn't streaming last week, but again, a good streamer. If you do want to check him out, it's twitch.tv/crashneck. That's crash as in like you would have if you had an off, and neck as in the bit between your head and your torso on that one. All one word, as we see a drive-through penalty popping up for Packer. I can only assume that's going to be for track limits. The
beating the record of last race.
Nice, yeah. Steward's box nice and quiet. Not a single report from race 2 so far from those guys. So I can only assume the number 6 picking up a track limits penalty, and I think that's quicker than Richard Phillips last time. That's about 20 minutes into the race as opposed to 22. So if we're going for any % track limits, certainly Luke Packer takes the world record at Oulton Park for tonight so far. Andy Boardman still coming under pressure, though, from Benjamin Holman. And
Brescia's made a mistake.
Brescia has made a mistake. He's down in P9. So the BMW dropping off the back of this lead train, losing a lot of positions and sliding through Oulton corner at the top of the... No, sorry, Druids at the top of the circuit. He's got Daniel Crimson behind him and Tom Shipston ahead of him. The RCI car finds itself in an RPMS sandwich with a charging RPMS army behind Crimson, Manzo and Phillips. To name the three there, and of course just on the back Carlos Calatayud. So certainly the number 25 BMW, something has happened around the lap, not too sure what. Maybe we can catch a race replay at some point. Benjamin Harmon though still fixated onto the back of the number 69 Greased Weasel racing car. Breathing room behind, knows he hasn't got to watch the mirror anymore. Christoph Verstappen some 1.5 seconds behind. Marco Badowski 4.2 seconds behind this battle. And then he's almost sat in what we would call the John Dalton zone here at RCI. He's got 3 seconds back to Matt Stevens. So Badowski is too quick for Stevens, although not quick enough to catch Verstappen. So he's in this empty no man's land where there's nobody ahead, nobody behind, and that is known as the John Dalton zone here at RCI. So put that down in your notebooks, because I'm sure we're going to see plenty more of those throughout the season as we continue our way to round 7. And just behind, of course, Matt Stevens at the head of the train from Ted Edwards, Martin Ulrich, and I think Tom Shipston is just about to latch onto the back of them. There he comes through the previous corner of Water Tower. So again, that could be something. And there's an interesting bumper sticker on the back of Matt Stevens' car. I'm hoping we can get a look at it at some point during this broadcast, because we had a debate at the Nearly On Pace Camp during the Red Bull World Tour 24 hours. What RPMS stood for? He had some very creative suggestions, and one of them has made the back of Matt Stevens' car. I think it actually stands for Richard Phillips, Matt Stevens, Simsport, essentially, is what it stands for. But we did have some very creative uses along the way at the Nearly On Pace Camp, and one of them has made it onto the back of Matt Stevens' car. So I was kind of excited for the grid walk today. Unfortunately, it didn't happen due to the server issues. But yeah, maybe we can get a look at that once it's in the pit lane later on. But Ted Edwards running on board with the Mustang. He's on to the back, of course, of Matt Stevens. And if we got close enough, we might be able to see it. It's on the left side of the car if we do catch it going through shots. So you guys at home can see if you can spot the Easter egg.
Is that bumper sticker safe for work at all, by any chance, John?
Yes, it is. Very safe for work.
Happy days. Very safe for work. Well, I personally don't know what it is, and now my eyes are going to be peeled, hoping to get back on board with Ted Edwards while he's fighting with Matt Stevens. Another great race from these two as well. Very consistent, making off a few places from their qualifying spot. One thing I did want to call out, I noticed that Les Stevenson had a crash or went off track at lap 1, and he appears to have fought his way back up to P19. So a good fight back drive. Redford as well, we've seen him in a few incidents. He's had a great fight back drive. We've got a race replay coming up. This is from Carlos Calatayud and the RMPS. Oh, an incident there, 2 into 1. Not enough space, just tags the rear of Carlos Calatayud, who we do need to call out, had a brilliant race 1, and it appears he got involved in a couple of incidents, has been slowly dropping down the field. Kevin Boss and the Ferrari, again another contact going into the rear of K-Boss. He couldn't hold it and goes back into the Ferrari. I don't think there's going to be much love lost between those two. A few times that Ferrari has gone into the back of K-Boss. I can imagine he's not too pleased with that. On board with the leaders, Holman, 2/10 from Boardman every single lap through this section, and just waiting for that mistake. But just going back to what you said, you know, with Brescia not in his rearview mirror, does that give him a bit more freedom to be a bit more attacking, because he knows he hasn't got the threat of Brescia behind? But of course they are teammates, you know, there may be that agreement that they're not going to be attacking each other anyway. But you have to say, regardless of team obligation, it will relieve a little bit of that pressure. We've got Van Kampen with a mistake, just running wide, careering off the track and coming straight across into the barrier. Unfortunate, but it's so easy to run wide there in turn 2 if your tyres are a little bit hot, too cold, not in the right window, and you just push a bit too much. It's very easy to make that mistake. Had an issue in race 1 as well, so it's probably a race day to forget for him. Back on board with the leaders, 4/10. And it looks like we've got 5 minutes to go. Is he going to make the move? Is Boardman going to make it 2 for 2? I'm excited to see how this one closes out.
I like to think that Benjamin Harmon will try and make a move. However, I think the Mustang of Boardman is just a little bit too strong, although time will tell, of course, like you say, Callum. Just under 5 minutes to go, and we know that one mistake here at Oulton can really unravel a lot of time. Just want to touch back on the RCI car. Bridgester has unfortunately retired. Drive-through penalty popped up very briefly before a quick disconnect from the server. So the RCI BMW will take no further part in today's round. Of course, Stephen Van Kampen finds himself in the Armco quite heavily. I think there's a bit of a nasty bump on the exit curve as well of essentially turn 3, which can really catch you out. I thought the stewards were asleep, although they appear to have woken up. So I think we're going to start seeing some penalties coming through thick and fast at the moment. We'll try and keep you updated on those as Mike Redford finds himself onto the back of Grim Lilith. Again, that's a driver combination that we see quite regularly in RCI, fighting towards the kind of mid-pack or just inside the top 10. Of course, plenty of cars here tonight, so slightly shuffled out of where we would usually see them. Thick and fast reports coming in from McKenna McConnell tonight and her team of stewards. We'll start from the top with a lap 1, turn 1, involving the 100 and the 30. It's a warning for the number 100 for pushing a car off the track. Lap 1, turn 1, involving the 957 and the 44. It's a warning for the 44 for late braking into turn 1, causing avoidable contact this time by. Lap 1, turn 15, involving the 77 and the 92. It's a 5 seconds for the 92 for, you guessed it, avoidable contact. Lap 1, turn 15, involving the 6 and the 957. It's a 5 seconds for the number 6 for pushing a car off the track. Lap 2, turn 5, involving the 27 and the 95. It's a 10 seconds for the 27 for a dive bomb, resulting in avoidable contact. We then got lap 2, turn 6, involving the 115, the 95, minor racing incident. Lap 2, turn 10, involving the 46 and the 96, minor contact racing incident. Lap 3, turn 7, involving the 30 and the 97. You guessed it, it's a racing incident. Lap 3, turn 9, involving the 97 and the 30. It's a 10 seconds for the car number 30. That's for avoidable contact. Lap 5, turn 9, involving the 31, the 115 and the 95 as a racing incident, unavoidable contact. And then the last two coming through. Lap 6, turn 9, involving the 73 and the 96. And lap 6, turn 9, also involving the 20 and the 31. Two separate incidences. They were both reported as racing incident minor contact. So Stewart's been nice and quiet for 28 minutes or so, Callum, then decided to fire through all of their reports in one. So, of course, we are on lap 17. The Stewards reports do go up to lap 6, so we may see a few post-race incidences. Meanwhile, Daniel Crinton seems to have found his way on to the back of Ted Edwards in the GTR, and this is a combination I didn't think we would ever be seeing in ACC, a Ford fighting a Nissan for position.
A battle of the power right here. It's worth saying, it seems Ted's may have dropped back a couple of paces. He was fighting in P6 when we were last on board with him. Maybe a small mistake dropped him a couple of places and into the clutches of Daniel Crisson in the GTR. As we see, he's got a bit more around the outside there from Hillman, trying to maybe get a bit of a better exit force. Very squirrely on the exit there, but trying to force that mistake, maybe forcing Boardman to put a bit more of his power down, get a little bit loose on the rear. For Draper, last time we were on board was about 2.5 seconds. He's slowly catching back up with this train, so there's clearly been a bit of fighting going on. Clearly that Aston's got a bit more pace later on in the race, and you can see they're just poking their noses left and right, trying to displace Boardman as best as he can. He is quite close going into Druids, and we know that McLaren is a lot stronger through Druids, so will he have the run into Lodge during this corner? On the exit.
Time will tell. Sorry, a bit delayed on the button there. But yeah, time will tell, of course, as Benjamin Harmon sizes up still the back of Andy Boardman. The Mustang just about has enough legs, I think, to get itself off the corner. Through Deer Leap they go. You should see the gap kind of expanding out just enough of course, that Benjamin Harmon cannot get the overlap and, you know, get up the inside on the brakes. He's just too far back as we see a car off in the gravel ahead. I think that's the Polish Audi at the back of the grid. Currently Juraszek in the number 77, currently at P28, so maybe quite wise staying off the racing line, of course, as these guys begin their final lap as the clock hits 0. The white flag's out roughly in the same place as we were last time, and Andy Boardman, the corners are running out. Benjamin Harmon looking to the outside of the Shell Wheels corner. There is contact between the McLaren and the Ford, although no harm, no foul. Both drivers keeping it on the straight and narrow, and the 796 is very fired up for this one, taking all of the curves. There's a big mistake. There's contact between the two race leaders. Christoph Verstappen, we said it all along.
We did. We said it.
Through he goes. Andy Boardman struggling to get that car back underway. Badowski in the background. You see him just behind the timing tower. He's already overtaken Andy Boardman. He could come to get Benjamin Heilman as well, and that's not what we want to see here. Very unfortunate from the two race leaders. It was so clean for 30 minutes plus until we got to the Britain chicane, and it all became unraveled for Andy Boardman and Benjamin Harmon. We'll leave that one up to the stewards to decide the fate, but Christoph Verstappen, after a clean race one, sat in no man's land, finds himself at the front of the grid as he comes into the final corner of Lodge. Down Deer Leap for the final time, up the other side he goes, and the 747 of Christoph Verstappen will take the win here in race 2 at round 1. And Benjamin Harmon comes through in P4. Badowski will take P2 for the Team Monkey Racing number 29. That's a good start to his season after a not so ideal race 1, and Andy Boardman comes through still on the bottom step of the podium. So the position, of course, was given back by Benjamin Harmon very respectfully indeed for the 796. Matt Stevens comes through in P5, followed by Tom Shipston in P6 for the RPMS team there. Martin Ulrich in P7. Ted Edwards finds his way in P8 as he comes through the shortcut. Daniel Crimson and Yao Manzo. Here's the team photo that we all wanted. Matt Stevens, Tom Shipston, of course, Daniel Crimson there, Yao Manzo. Absolute flying formation from the RPMS squad, and that's great to see at the end of the broadcast. Dow in the number 420, that's a little bit of a dark horse there, comes through in P11. Texira in P12. Grim Lilith in the Castrol Kaiju coloured Audi R8 in P13. Mike Redford in P14. Les Stevenson this time put enough fuel in. I wonder if he's found that elusive cool bag yet at Oulton Park. Carlos Calatayud with a slight penalty comes through in P16. Richard Phillips, Martin Foster, Daniels. Here's the incident that unravelled everything, because we catch it here towards the end of the broadcast. So through the Shell Wheels corner, both drivers went. Benjamin Harmon had a little bit of a better run, and I think he just got a little bit too kind of overzealous and a bit greedy on the curbs. It upset the McLaren, really lunged on the brakes, hit the curb on the left of Britain's, and that just fired him into the back of Andy Boardman. Very unfortunate indeed. Both drivers struggling to get back underway, and that of course allowed for Verstappen through and Badowski as well. And I'm wondering if we can find Matt Stevens' car on the pit lane. I don't think we can get out of the old pit menus. But the bumper sticker on the back of the number 100, certainly one to take a look at. Not sure if we can view it all too well in the broadcast. I don't think we can now. Ted Edwards sandwiched in the back. Maybe we can save that for round 2 when we head to Silverstone. We can take a look at all the liveries on the grid. But here is your final race results, of course, pending any post-race penalties that may be handed out. Of course, the full results file will be uploaded to the website once it's all been fixed and adjusted. But Christoph Verstappen takes race 2 victory. Badowski, a next step on the podium. Andy Boardman takes the bottom step of the podium after the coming together with Benjamin Heilman for P4. We then got Matt Stevens and Tom Shipston in 5th and 6th. Martin Ulrich in 7th. Ted Edwards, the car number 8, finishing in 8th place. Daniel Crimson in P9, and Yao Manzo rounds out your top 10. So a strong finish there for the RPMS camp. And of course, scrolling down, we've got Dow, Texira, Lilith, Mike Redford there in the mid-pack as well. Les Stevenson, as we said, managed to finish this one. Richard Phillips, Carlos Calatayud after not such an ideal race 2. We got Martin Foster, a little bit cleaner this time. Daniels, Galoy, Turner, Roskam, Lation. That's one to forget, certainly. Kevin Boss in there as well. Packer with the drive-through penalty shuffled him down from the positions. Montero, Vercutio, Jurasek, Harvey and Withel all finished the race. Unfortunately, Brewster, Van Kampen, Keller, Howling and Matheson did not take the checkered flag for race 2. But Callum, we went into this round thinking, we looked at the sign-ups before we all came in the booth. We thought, 49 cars, this is going to be chaos. Came to the server, 35 cars showed up, and we thought, this is still going to be chaos. And, you know, given all that we kind of speculated before we came on air tonight, it's actually been a relatively clean race with a clean lap 1 in race 2 as well, before it all, of course, kicked off in the early stages.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a phenomenal couple of races. Like you said, we expected carnage. We got a sprinkling of carnage here and there, but what we did see in abundance was some clean racing, some brilliant overtakes on a track which we don't usually see as many overtakes as we expected, but up and down the field, mixed between manufacturers, was just clean, hard, and fair racing. And I have thoroughly enjoyed myself watching that one. I can only imagine the people that have been watching on YouTube and Twitch have enjoyed it as well. I believe we have a couple of people hopping into the booth for an interview as well, John.
Yeah, we've got a couple of people joining us just for a few post-race words. Of course, Marco Badowski, I think we'll come to you first. Of course, good result in race 2 after the coming together between Boardman and Heilman, of course, as we catch the race highlights in the stream in the background. But, you know, Oulton Park, we thought it was going to be chaos. From your point of view of a driver, you know, how did it go?
I mean, like, of course, the most important thing on this track, when it's basically impossible to overtake, is to nail the quali, which I think I did. Like, I beat my PB from practice by like 1.5 tenths. But then on the start, Verstappen behind me was very aggressive in both races, and to be fair, like, I didn't feel confident enough in the car to properly fight back, so I was demoted to P5 in both races very quickly, and the top 4 pack, I think all of them, like the RCI esports bunch, they started pulling away. Like, they just had those 3-4 tenths per lap on me, so the race got pretty boring in race 1 until I decided to have a lap of focus and spin into the barrier leading up to the hairpin to Lake Corner it is, I believe. Yeah, from there on I tried to fight back, but it's almost no chance with inflated tires, bit of damage, and cars that are probably pretty good in straight line.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Once you kind of cook the Pirellis, they all kind of lose all performance that they did have at that point in the race. Of course, race 2, slightly better result there, up into P2. Of course, coming through Britain's the chicane we're seeing now between Carlos Calatayud and Joshua Lation. You know, what did you think when you saw the yellow flag out? Obviously, you knew something was up. Did you think it was the race leaders, or did you think it was just a back marker?
I'm quite prone to have a bit of too much of an eye on the minimap while racing. So my first thought when I saw like the 2 yellow dots with the numbers from guys in front of me, I said, yes, come on, finally! Like, I saw them fighting so hard, like 3 cars within half a second, and I thought to myself, come on, like, they can't keep this up for the entire race again. Like, there needs something to be happening, and luckily for me it did, because this time I decided to not push that hard and probably risk crashing or spinning out again, and luckily this time I got rewarded for it.
Yeah, so we thought the same up here in the booth. You know, how was it going to last for the entirety of the race? Just before we let you go and we move on to Bruno Teixeira, anybody you want to give a shout out to or a thanks to?
Yeah, like, of course, first and foremost to my teammate Peter, who is currently on the night train on his way to the Spa racetrack. I'm gonna be meeting him on Wednesday, and also all the other people that I'll hopefully meet at Spa this weekend. Like, people who I've been looking forward to a long time to actually meeting them in person again, or for the first time.
yeah, say the CrowdStrike Spa 24 hours, of course, happening in real life today. So this week, should we say, not today, but yeah, this week coming up to it. So we hope you have a wonderful time with the Team Monkey guys, and obviously if anybody else at home is attending Spa, we hope you have a wonderful time as well. Maybe try and have some kind of RCI meetup between everybody. That'd be pretty cool to see. Loads of faces all together, and maybe we'll put a face to the name in the Discord. But yeah, thank you for dropping in. Best of luck for the rest of the season, and a pretty strong start in race 2.
Yeah, thank you very much. Also about the meetup that you just mentioned, I think we are bringing something along with us where it's pretty easy to recognize us.
I expect there's a giant Team Monkey flag that we're going to be seeing around Spa maybe for the entirety of the weekend. But yeah, keep your eyes peeled for, of course, Badowski and Varga on their journeys. And yeah, I hope you enjoy yourselves at the Spa 24.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Now, moving on to Bruno Teixeira, becoming a bit of a name at RCI, if I say so myself, for picking the oddball cars, should we say. I mean, GT2, you picked the 935. And obviously for the Mini British GT tonight, you've picked the GTR. Again, a car that we thought we wouldn't see too many of, but apparently everybody seems to be picking them for this one.
Yeah, I honestly usually enjoy like the weird cars. Mainly because I can just excuse myself when I have a bad result. Oh damn, the car sucks, whatever. But also because they're usually really fun to drive, and the GTR, I've always liked the GTR, so I thought it was the nice opportunity to drive it.
That's page 4 in the Racing Driver Book of Excuses. Blame the car.
Exactly.
I like that one. I like that one a lot. Myself and Callum, we kind of speculated that tonight would be a little bit chaotic. I mean, in places it certainly was, from what we caught up here in the booth. Of course, running in the mid-pack, was there anything that we might not have caught? How was it going for you guys?
Well, race 1 was terrible for me. I think lap 2 or something on turn 3, the sweeping left-hander, I made a mistake and I lost maybe 20 positions. Then maybe 2 laps later I made the same mistake again, so race 1 is out of question. Then race 2 went a lot better. I managed to pick up 2 positions, I think, up to P12. And then I pretty much just followed, I think, a couple of cars from RPMS, the Audi and the other GTR, but I never managed to overtake any of them.
Yeah, I say RPMS in a strong showing, so that would have been Manzo and Crimson that you were following. So yeah, it'd be good to see a couple of GTRs maybe duking it out in a few rounds to come. Any particular track you're looking forward to on the calendar this season?
Honestly, Silverstone is not my best track, but I think the straight line speed of the GTR might help me a bit. And then maybe the infamous Nordschleife. I'm not sure if it's gonna be good or bad, but it's gonna be something definitely. So I'm looking forward for that.
Yeah, I think Nordschleife is on my favourite track of the calendar this year, so that's going to be very interesting to see, especially with some of these oddball cars that people have been picking. Anybody that you want to say thank you to or give a shout out to before we let you go tonight?
I want to thank the people on YouTube, like, I'm not sure if I can name channel names here. People like On Speed and Friedolf that give free setups that are pretty decent. I think those guys are really important in the sim racing community, and thanks to them for baseline setups.
Yeah, say One Speed and of course Friedolf, to name a few on YouTube doing maybe God's work for the community, especially the Nordschleife setups they've been churning out between them. They're pretty good for something that hasn't cost any pennies at all. But you know, congratulations in your result, Bruno. Hopefully you have a good rest of the season, and fingers crossed the GTR treats you well.
Thank you.
No worries. That was Bruno Teixeira there, and we heard briefly at the start from Marco Badowski as well. Callum, we thought it was going to be absolute chaos tonight. It's actually been relatively kind of calm and safe as we see Bridgester there fire off into the gravel. That's certainly what happened in race 2 that we didn't quite catch on the broadcast. Of course, next week, Silverstone, it's an hour 30. There's 2 mandatory pit stops, both with fixed refueling time. So whether you chuck in 1 litre, 100 litres, who cares? You're still going to be costed 25 seconds. Could we see the tables turn? Of course, the Mustang is very good over a sprint, but how well will it do over the 1 hour 30?
Yeah, and I think my biggest takeaway from these 2 races is just how good this upcoming season is going to be. I am beyond excited to see. We're going to Silverstone next. Well, then we're going to Donington next, then over to Silverstone. It's going to be incredible. I can't wait, and looking forward to next Monday.
Yeah, it's going to be a wonderful season coming up. Of course, we're here every week, fingers crossed, on Monday, bringing you a broadcast from the Pocket Money Mini British GT Championship. Of course, next week we head to Silverstone, Donington, Nordschleife, Snetterton, Donington Park, before rounding out on August 5th at Brands Hatch. So it's going to be a long old season, 7 weeks to come, and plenty more scenes that you're seeing on your screen at the moment. Of course, a big thank you to our partners. They've been revolving around in the bottom left hand side of your screen. Of course, AK Esports, Driver61.com, Fanatec, DigitalMotorsports.com, and of course Go Setups. Be sure to check all their links out down below in the description. And down below, of course, you can also find all of our social media: Discord, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, if you want to follow what's going on at RCI. And of course, a big thank you to you guys at home for joining us on this journey. Whether you're watching back, you're lurking, you've been here from the beginning, or you're just simply here for a good time, we thank each and every one of you. And be sure to head over to the website racerci.com if you do want to get a slice of this action. So from myself, John Dalton, from Callum Kerrigan alongside me, and of course Jesse Lee bringing you all the pictures from behind the cameras, and of course not forgetting our live stewards. We hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. Remember, Spa 24 IRL this week as well, so we hope you have a wonderful time if you are attending there, and we hope to see plenty of pictures in the Discord from yourselves. Take care, have a wonderful rest of the week, and we'll hopefully catch you next Monday on RCI TV. Take care.